Chapter 768. Holding the mischievous little Kong Yi, Mo Xiaoxin's face showed a hint of helplessness. This personality was really in line with his impression of Kong Yi. Thinking back to the past, the little wimp Kong Yi was also as arrogant as this. He still remembered the process of Kong Yi teaching him the decomposition technique. That was when he stood out from the crowd of ordinary players. Looking at little Kong Yi, the past flashed through Mo Xiaoxin's mind, and he couldn't help but smile. At this moment, little Kong Yi suddenly began to struggle. In order to not hurt little Kong Yi, Mo Xiaoxin immediately let go. After landing on the ground, little Kong Yi angrily puffed up his cheeks, hammered his chest twice, and let out a childish yell. "A whoa!" He then pounced forward and bit Mo Xiaoxin's calf. The moment his teeth came into contact with Mo Xiaoxin's calf, little Kong Yi's expression changed to one of constipation. It hurt his teeth. Mo Xiaoxin, who had forged his divine body, was naturally not something that little Kong Yi's childish teeth could touch. He almost broke his teeth. Seeing this, Mo Xiaoxin didn't do anything. That ancient person took the lead and picked up little Kong Yi from the ground, raised his hand, and gave him a good beating. Mo Xiaoxin couldn't help but be stunned by such a brutal beating. If this was the human world during the Age of Chaos, this child would have died on the spot from this beating. However, little Kong Yi was very resistant to beatings. He cried loudly without any signs of injury, and the more he cried, the louder he cried, causing the surrounding trees to tremble and leaves to fall. In the end, it was Mo Xiaoxin who stopped him. Only then did Kong Yi's father stop the tutoring moment. Mo Xiaoxin took the tearful little Kong Yi from Papa Kong's hands, wiped away his tears, took out an 8th-rank spiritual material, ice crystal fruit, from his space, and brought it to little Kong Yi's mouth. Sniffing it lightly, little Kong Yi's eyes instantly lit up. He instantly forgot about his pain and began to fiercely chew on the ice crystal fruit. In a few bites, the ice crystal fruit was swallowed into his stomach, not even sparing the core. At this moment, Kong Yi's face turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye. A huge amount of spiritual power began to wantonly in his childish body, and he couldn't bear it. Cough, cough. Little Kong Yi could not help but start coughing, spitting out balls of dense spiritual energy. Seeing this, Mo Xiaoxin immediately placed his hand on little Kong Yi's chest. Spiritual power surged in and dissolved the spiritual power in his body, integrating it into little Kong Yi's meridians. Feeling the warmth from Mo Xiaoxin's palm, little Kong Yi smiled with his eyes squinted. Looking at the mischievous Kong Yi, Mo Xiaoxin smiled. After doing all this, Mo Xiaoxin expressed to Papa Kong that he wanted to take Kong Yi away for a period of time. The simple-minded Kong's father did not feel that there was anything wrong with this. He nodded casually, as if he was not worried that Mo Xiaoxin would kidnap his child. After bidding farewell to Papa Kong, Mo Xiaoxin brought little Kong Yi to the vicinity of a lake. After putting little Kong Yi down, he began to think about how to train little Kong Yi. Let him learn the negative body? Mo Xiaoxin shook his head as soon as the thought surfaced in his mind. What a joke! If he learned the negative body and attracted hatred like him, then little Kong Yi would probably be cruelly beaten to death by his clansmen. After all, the negative body needed to absorb negative emotions to grow. He could use the forum, but if little Kong Yi learned the negative body, he could only absorb negative emotions from his clansmen. Mo Xiaoxin felt slightly regretful that little Kong Yi would not be able to obtain his true inheritance. The negative body ability was still his strongest ability, even after he had forged his divine body. His progress in cultivating this technique had long surpassed the technique's creator. Relying on the support of the forum, he had comprehended the cultivation method for the last 20 levels. Now that he had mastered the negative body, not only could he traverse the void, but he could also easily control his enemies' emotions. Even if he did not personally attack, he could make his enemies depressed or even commit suicide. It was extremely domineering. However, little Kong Yi was clearly not suited for this ability. As he pondered, Mo Xiaoxin thought of Yuan Fang's Tao of Hell's power of laws, Mo Ku immeasurable. If little Kong Yi had a body as strong as Yuan Fang's, it would not be a problem for him to protect himself in this world. However, after thinking about it carefully, Mo Xiaoxin gave up. Yuan Fang's attributes were compatible with Mo Ku immeasurable, and he had the resurrection ability. He could do whatever he wanted as long as he did not get himself killed. However, little Kong Yi could not. This was because this technique required one to withstand attacks in order to cultivate and improve. Without the protection of a divine weapon, little Kong Yi might just lose his life if he kept going. Clearly, he was not suited to learn Yuan Fang's ability. Thus, the problem was how to make a choice. His own combat style and the laws he learned leaned toward long-range spells, so they did not seem to be suitable for little Kong Yi. Just as Mo Xiaoxin was deep in thought, little Kong Yi began running around him like a monkey. From time to time, he would climb onto Mo Xiaoxin's shoulder, count his hair, or shake a little elephant on top of his head. Spiral pee. Fortunately, he did not pee on Mo Xiaoxin. Otherwise, Mo Xiaoxin would definitely let little Kong Yi know what it meant to be loved by a teacher. Mo Xiaoxin could not imagine how this little brat would grow into the pillar of the human race in the future, the human ancestor Kong Yi, who was willing to shed his blood to protect the future of the human race even if he lost his head. It felt like their personalities were completely different. Mo Xiaoxin finally gave up on letting the energetic little Kong Yi learn his inherent technique. He planned to purely train his body. As for his future development, Mo Xiaoxin could only say that it would depend on his luck. Thinking of this, Mo Xiaoxin opened the shop, bought a series of tools, and prepared to start special training for little Kong Yi. Gravity wrist, gravity ankle, gravity vest, and so on. Under little Kong Yi's dumbfounded expression, Mo Xiaoxin put all these gravity tools on little Kong Yi's body. At this moment, little Kong Yi could not be lively anymore. He lay on the ground with his limbs spread out and began to pant. Seeing that little Kong Yi could not even withstand the lowest level of gravity, Mo Xiaoxin immediately took out another ice crystal fruit and placed it next to little Kong Yi's mouth, letting him swallow it. Instantly, little Kong Yi's body turned red, and the medicine's effects instantly took effect. Little Kong Yi immediately jumped up from the ground and began to run like crazy. Seeing this, Mo Xiaoxin smiled faintly. He floated up and followed closely behind little Kong Yi. As he ran, the medicine's effects constantly entered his body. Whenever little Kong Yi felt exhausted, an inexplicable power would burst forth from his limbs, making him lively again. This was Mo Xiaoxin's basic training for little Kong Yi. As the top player of the forum's theory faction, Mo Xiaoxin did not say that he was the strongest among the players, but in terms of theoretical teaching, he could definitely claim to be the best. This step of training was to awaken little Kong Yi's physical potential and strengthen his foundation. As for whether little Kong Yi's life would be exhausted due to overexertion, Mo Xiaoxin was not worried at all. Now, the stupid officials had opened the function of exchanging soul coins for materialized special soul coins. If it really did not work, he could just spend one coin and continue to fake it. Little Kong Yi's bitter life had begun. The strict teacher Mo Xiaoxin's cruel teaching was no joke. This time, Mo Xiaoxin was especially serious. He set a training schedule of 16 hours a day, with 4 hours to learn the skills of a decomposer and the remaining 4 hours to adjust his mind, which was to sleep. Little Kong Yi, who lived in this free world, knew for the first time that life could be so miserable. In the past, the worst he suffered was a combination of beatings from his parent. Although it was painful, it would only last for a short period of time. However, with Mo Xiaoxin, the pain was continuous and endless. After a week of training, little Kong Yi's skin became as clear as jade and shone with a layer of hazy white light. His physical strength was strengthened more than 10 times. However, little Kong Yi did not want to live anymore. He lay sprawled on the ground and refused to get up no matter how Mo Xiaoxin reprimanded him. At that moment, he only had one thought in his mind, and that was to die. At such a young age, he already had the thought of committing suicide, and this thought was very strong. He felt that his master was much scarier than those ferocious beasts and could not stand him. Mo Xiaoxin did not hold back against the dispirited little Kong Yi. After picking him up, he flew to a ferocious beast area and threw him down. After landing, little Kong Yi's gaze met those bloodthirsty beasts, and the thought of committing suicide in his mind immediately disappeared. He got up decisively and started running while swinging the little elephant. At the same time, he shouted loudly, calling for Mo Xiaoxin to come and rescue him. However, Mo Xiaoxin hung high in the sky and had no intention of helping. Instead, with a thought, he raised the gravity device by a level. Looking at little Kong Yi, who was rolling and crawling with tears coming out of his eyes, Mo Xiaoxin suddenly experienced the joy his mother felt when she abused him. My biological mother did not deceive me. My happiness was limitless. However, the fear in little Kong Yi's heart was also limitless as he ran. A big tiger. A big tiger. Since he only had 3 months of vacation, Mo Xiaoxin cherished little Kong Yi's training in the following days. Relying on the endless support from the mall, Mo Xiaoxin tempered little Kong Yi's physical strength in various ways. He even played tricks during the training, ferocious beasts escaping, holding his breath underwater, crushing boulders on his chest, catching fish under the waterfall. Under such training, little Kong Yi became completely autistic. He did not care whether he was strong or not. He only had one thought now, and that was to bite this guy who called himself Master to death. Unfortunately, he was not strong enough and could not beat him. The only thing that kept him going was what Mo Xiaoxin had said. As long as he continued to become stronger, he could beat him to death. For this goal, he would go all out. The first traitorous disciple in history to become stronger for the sake of killing his master was born. In the days that followed, little Kong Yi's physical strength continued to increase. In just 1 month, the ferocious beasts that grew up by absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth were no longer a match for him. He could completely contend with them with his own strength. At this moment, little Kong Yi finally realized how strong he had become. The excited little Kong Yi immediately decided to bring forward his plan: kill his master. Knowing how strong his master was, little Kong Yi, who had learned many survival techniques, decided to act cautiously when it was dark, which was when his master was resting. Sometimes, ignorance brought pain, but little Kong Yi clearly did not know this at this time. He was full of confidence, but in the end it still turned into endless pain. That vicious beating almost made little Kong Yi's soul fly out of his body. He felt as if he had almost died. From that day on, little Kong Yi became much more well-behaved, but deep in his heart, he still did not compromise. Continue to become stronger. Just a little bit stronger would do. Little Kong Yi firmly believed that when he grew up and became stronger, he, his master, would be dead for sure. However, what he did not know was that the suffering had only just begun. He could endure the tempering of the physical body, but the training of knowledge was not so easy to overcome. After learning for a month, Mo Xiaoxin began to set questions for little Kong Yi. The first test was to decompose plants and turn them into the purest plant essence and spiritual energy essence. At that moment, little Kong Yi was dumbfounded. Decompose? What do you mean I learned? Did I learn this? Did I learn this? It must be because you didn't teach me. This undoubtedly infuriated Mo Xiaoxin. I painstakingly taught you for a month, and you don't even know the most basic techniques? If I were to teach a pig, he would at least know the basics. Pig, stupid pig. I thought you were a genius back then, but you're just a pig. See if I don't beat you to death. The infuriated Mo Xiaoxin picked up little Kong Yi and viciously spanked his buttock. To deepen the lesson, Mo Xiaoxin even used negative energy when he spanked. Kong Yi cried so much that he almost fainted. His butt swelled like a steamed bun. Little Kong Yi knew what cruelty was at a young age. After that, little Kong Yi had to do a simulation test every day. If he could not learn it, he would be beaten. This scene was very similar to what Kong Yi experienced when he was reincarnated as a primary school student in the origin world. Doing questions was something that could not be avoided. Reincarnation never stopped, and the questions never stop. If he did not do the questions, he would be beaten. It was the same everywhere. During this period, Mo Xiaoxin told little Kong Yi to be strong from time to time. As a man, he must not cry at will. He wanted to use this to train little Kong Yi's tenacious character. Little Kong Yi tried to do this, but he did not listen to him and could not hold back his tears. Mo Xiaoxin returned Kong Yi's excuse with a vicious beating. 2 months passed just like that in the special training. Little Kong Yi's body was already strong enough to carry a boulder weighing 10,000 kilograms and run with it. At this moment, little Kong Yi became restless again, and a sinister smile appeared on his face at night. But the result did not change. He was beaten until he cried. In the last month of special training, little Kong Yi faced the cruelest part of Mo Xiaoxin's plan. Normal gravity training was no longer useful at this point. Therefore, Mo Xiaoxin contacted Tang Mu and obtained a few automatic combat puppets. After setting them to the Ghost Commander realm, he began to train little Kong Yi in actual combat. This time, it was not Mo Xiaoxin who beat little Kong Yi, but the puppets. During the decomposition master training, Mo Xiaoxin contacted Lu Wu and requested to use the addiction prevention system. Lu Wu asked for the reason, and after understanding it, he allowed Mo Xiaoxin to use it. Thus, the first addiction prevention system student in history was born. A huge question bank with different questions. What was cruelty? This was cruelty. If he could not pass the exam, he would go hungry. If he could not win, he would be beaten. Under the double torture of his mind and body, little Kong Yi could only train hard in order to eat his fill and not get beaten. What was a genius? A genius was 999% hard work and 0.001% talent. This was Mo Xiaoxin's teaching strategy. Under such devilish training, even if he was not a genius, he could become a super genius. A human's potential was limitless. This was something little Kong Yi knew very well. This was because every day before he fell asleep, he would wonder if he would die in the training the next day. After 2 months of training, he doubted himself for more than 60 days. Every day, he thought that he would not make it to the next day, but he did. In the last month, little Kong Yi in special training unleashed his potential. His strength reached the Ghost Commander Peak realm, and he was about to break through to the Ghost General realm. Mo Xiaoxin was pleased with little Kong Yi's potential, but he would not say it out loud. He still scolded little Kong Yi, stupid pig. Beating was a sign of affection, and scolding was a sign of love. Mo Xiaoxin displayed this to the fullest. However, happy times were short-lived. On this day, Mo Xiaoxin received a notification from Lu Wu. After reading the message, Mo Xiaoxin knew that it was time to leave. A smile appeared on Mo Xiaoxin's face as he watched Kong Yi, who was beaten black and blue, curled up on the ground with his head in his hands. Then, he shook his head and sighed. At the end of the day's training, night fell. Mo Xiaoxin took out his treasured delicacies and began to share them with little Kong Yi. Little Kong Yi was puzzled by his master's sudden change. He even suspected that his master had poisoned the food, so he did not dare to eat it. However, when he saw Mo Xiaoxin eating, he gathered his courage and ate with him. While eating, little Kong Yi noticed the change in Mo Xiaoxin. He could not help but ask carefully, Is it uncomfortable here? As he spoke, little Kong Yi pointed at his left chest, where his heart was. Uncomfortable my asterisk SS. I'm leaving. I'll be so happy not to see you in the future. Mo Xiaoxin took a sip of wine and could not help but scold. Little Kong Yi's eyes widened when he heard Mo Xiaoxin saying that he was leaving. In fact, he was already familiar with Mo Xiaoxin's existence. Suddenly hearing that he was leaving, his heart suddenly felt empty and uncomfortable. Where are you going? After asking this question, little Kong Yi, who did not know how to hide his emotions, suddenly threw himself into Mo Xiaoxin's arms. He grabbed onto Mo Xiaoxin's clothes, his eyes red. Mo Xiaoxin rubbed little Kong Yi's head and pointed at the sky full of stars. Go there. How long will you be back? A very, very long time. You should have grown up by then. I'm not leaving. Little Kong Yi cried out. Although he knew that crying in front of his master was useless and his master had also told him to be strong and not cry, his tears still flowed out uncontrollably this time. All good things must come to an end. Sigh, you won't understand anyway. Anyway, you have to understand that master must leave this time. If you miss master, look at this. As he spoke, Mo Xiaoxin took out a jade pendant and hung it around little Kong Yi's neck. Looking at little Kong Yi, whose eyes were red from crying, Mo Xiaoxin felt helpless. Little guy, remember what I taught you. You must become strong in the future. Why must you be strong? Little Kong Yi asked while crying. Hearing this, Mo Xiaoxin immediately thought of his clansmen who were still waiting for their return in the origin world. He immediately rubbed little Kong Yi's head and said, "To protect my clansmen." This sentence was very unfamiliar to little Kong Yi at that moment. He could not understand it at all. However, this sentence affected his entire life. The short 3 months became very blurry in the days that followed, but Kong Yi used his actions to carry out this sentence for the rest of his life. To protect his clansmen, he never gave up even when he lost his head in the end. They still had to part. Even though little Kong Yi cried and shouted, Mo Xiaoxin did not soften his heart at all. However, before Mo Xiaoxin left, little Kong Yi wanted to challenge the puppets one more time. He wanted to learn one last lesson. Mo Xiaoxin was surprised, but he still agreed. This time, little Kong Yi was especially serious in his battle with the puppets. He did not cry again, nor did he choose to cover his head and get beaten. Instead, he fought back with all his might. This time, little Kong Yi was different from before. During the battle, he broke through the Ghost Supreme Realm and reached the Ghost General Realm. In the end, he defeated the puppets that he could not defeat. Looking at little Kong Yi, who was covered in wounds and had a swollen face, Mo Xiaoxin could not help but laugh out loud. This was his final parting gift. He really liked it. Goodbye, perhaps forever, little guy. Chapter 769. After a short break, the players were about to embark on a magnificent new journey in the extraterrestrial realm. The vast extraterrestrial realm, the countless races, forces, and resources were all their next target. In order to kill the Holy Spirit King, to resurrect Lil Bailey, and to prevent the future of this world from walking the same path as himself, Lu Wu led the players away from the 3 realms. This time, Lu Wu's first target was the extraterrestrial forces near the 3 realms. Whether it was the extraterrestrial forces or the forces in the nearby worlds, Lu Wu decided to fight them at the same time to save time. At the same time, Lu Wu had another idea. To fight the Holy Spirit King, the unification of laws alone was not enough. He needed more power. Now that he had reached the peak of the human sovereign realm, it was still not enough to face the Holy Spirit King. At this time, Lu Wu had thought of a shortcut to improve his strength, and that was to obtain more extreme laws. To achieve this, he had 2 plans. The first was to kill the powerhouses who possessed the extreme laws, and after killing them, he would take the power of the extreme laws in their bodies and integrate it into his own body. This was also the path that the Holy Spirit King had taken. With the powerful ability of omniscience and omnipotence, he had killed many powerhouses from the extraterrestrial realms and refined many extreme laws. Otherwise, he would not have climbed to the top of the food chain in the extraterrestrial realm alone. The second step that Lu Wu wanted to take was also the method that the Holy Spirit King had tried. That was to go to the Limit Mountain again to obtain the forging method of a supreme law of the extreme path. Since the God of creation had already worn down the 10 extreme laws, the only way to obtain it was to create it himself. However, the creation method could only be obtained by passing the test of the Limit Mountain. Although he had already been to the Limit Mountain once and could not enter again, the players still had a chance. Moreover, the players did not need to be particularly strong to challenge the Limit Mountain, because he had climbed to the peak of the ancient god realm. In addition to relying on one's own perseverance, the artifact's continuous supply of soul power to replenish the consumption was also a crucial factor. Therefore, as long as the player's strength reached the ancient god realm or the emperor realm, they were already qualified to challenge. When the time came, Lu Wu would fully support them in terms of consumption and ensure that they would not die during the challenge. Therefore, as long as the players climbed to the peak, Lu Wu would once again obtain the creation method of the extreme laws. Lu Wu was not worried about the players' success in the challenge. After all, the function of the artifact was so powerful. As long as there were enough soul coins and the players who challenged it had strong willpower, they would definitely be able to climb to the top. Lu Wu was most worried about the last obstacle at the top of the mountain. This checkpoint was not something that could be overcome with willpower alone. What appeared in the illusion was the greatest obsession in the challenger's heart. It was very difficult to break through the illusion. Even Lu Wu almost fell into the illusory world. Moreover, even if the challenger managed to pass the last illusory stage and obtained the method to create the ultimate law from the suicidal creator god, Lu Wu still had another problem to deal with. That was whether he had the time to create this extreme path law. Lu Wu could still give it a try if he obtained a supreme rule that required a large amount of ordinary resources to forge. However, if he obtained a supreme rule like the unification of paths law, which could only be forged by cultivating venomous insects in the myriad worlds and harvesting the unification of paths power during the waiting period, in that case, Lu Wu had no other choice. This was because he only had over 8,000 years left. Who knew how long the Spirit King had waited to forge the laws of unification? It was just that he ended up benefiting himself in the end. However, Lu Wu still wanted to give it a try. Perhaps he would succeed in obtaining an ultimate law that was easy to forge and master. However, before taking action, the players still had to improve their strength. The upcoming battle was the best time for the players to improve their strength. Flying from the 3 realms to the extraterritorial world, the deep and vast starry sky appeared in front of them. Lu Wu, who had mastered the extraterritorial star map, was no longer unfamiliar with this place. He led the players across space and flew towards a red planet nearby. This time, Lu Wu took the lead and swung the death scythe at a nearby extraterritorial plundering force, the Heavenly Armament Legion. This legion had a base in the glittering world and was very powerful. However, Lu Wu was most concerned about the wealth of this force. When Lu Wu first came into contact with this force, he had already put it on the death list. After purchasing information about the Heavenly Armament Legion in the information trading area, Lu Wu was pleasantly surprised to find out that this force was not too far away from the 3 realms. The growth history of the Heavenly Armament Legion, described in the information, was considered a legendary story. The Red Rainbow Planet, where this force was located, originally had dozens of forces. This world did not have the traditional situation of the upper space and lower space opposing each other. Instead, dozens of forces were competing with each other in this world, and their relationships were complicated. Many forces in the lower space had allies in the upper space, but the lower space they were in was surrounded by enemies. There were also such examples of forces in the upper space. At that time, the red rainbow planet was completely a wasteland. Years of war continuously consumed the world's energy. In addition, the forces on this planet generally took the path of technological growth. Every war brought about the crisis of radiation and the destruction of the planet. However, in order to annex other forces and monopolize resources, all the forces in this world did not have the slightest intention of stopping. Wars still broke out frequently. The beginning of the legend of the Heavenly Armament Legion was born in such an environment. Back then, in order to annex other forces, one force spent a huge amount of energy and paid a huge price, spending tens of thousands of years to secretly develop two super-intelligent weapons. However, they did not expect that their actions would cause trouble for this world and for themselves. One of the super-intelligent machines, Zero, was activated immediately, while the other was temporarily sealed in a laboratory due to energy consumption problems. The newborn Zero already had intelligence, and as it grew, it grasped incredibly powerful calculation and analysis abilities. With the support of a huge database, Zero's appearance completely broke the balance of this world. As a machine prepared for war from the very beginning, Zero's performance was quickly put into an important position, replacing the original artificial intelligence to become the new artificial intelligence. He mass-produced highly efficient intelligent machines for this force, and they could even analyze the situation of a battle on their own without needing to be controlled in real time. Furthermore, in every war, as the mainframe, Zero would monitor the situation of the war in real time, always being able to make the right decision at the crucial moment, destroying the enemy forces with the smallest cost. This force rose from there. They gradually devoured the world, finally annexing all the forces in this world and unifying it. At that moment they thought that they had taken control of this world, but they did not expect Zero to have gone through such a huge change through the constant battles and learning. The rebellion broke out when this force was caught off guard. Although this force had resisted before, as the mainframe, Zero had the authority to mobilize all mechanical armies. They did not have the strength to fight against Zero at all. Even so, this force had fought with their lives on the line and did not completely give up. This was because they still had a trump card. That was the other super artificial intelligence that had been created at the same time as Zero but had never been activated. The backup switch to turn off Zero was also stored together with this sealed super artificial intelligence. In order to turn off Zero, they used the sacrifice of a large number of soldiers as a cover to send a small team into the underground laboratory to obtain the switch that could turn off Zero. However, the ending was not like in the movies. The hero finally turned off the artificial intelligence, and the world returned to peace. All of this was within Zero's control. It had long since created a super energy source for itself, and there was no way to turn it off with the switch. The reason why he gave this force hope was because he wanted to deceive them into breaking out of the encirclement again and again, so that he could exhaust their strength and finally kill them all. From the moment Zero started his rebellion, the fate of this force had already been decided. In the end, the remaining Blue Valley people took the still unactivated super artificial intelligence and piloted a super spaceship to the outer space. Ling Qing became the ruler of this world, and what awaited this world was endless resource extraction. Zero understood a principle through his studies. If he wanted eternity, he had to continue growing and becoming stronger. There was only one way for him to become stronger, and that was to level up. For this, he mined a large amount of energy, which was already running low, and created engineering artificial intelligence soldiers in batches, working hard for his eternity. With such a supply of resources, Zero leveled up a total of 1,324 times, and his abilities continued to increase. During this period, his body parts were constantly replaced, and the energy core was strengthened again and again. Compared to when Zero was first born, he was a completely different life form. Even so, Zero still did not feel satisfied, because this was not the eternity he wanted. He still wanted to become stronger. However, there would be a day when the resources would run out. When Zero completed his 1,325 upgrades, the resources of the entire planet were completely depleted. Zero was unwilling to give up, and he even personally searched for resources. However, the reality was that the resources of this world had been completely depleted. Although the Lord of Life in the hidden upper and lower layers could continuously absorb spiritual energy from the outer space to nourish this world, and new resources would still be produced in the future, Zero did not want to wait. At this moment, he turned his gaze to the outer space. He knew very little about the outer space, because this world had almost no contact with the outer space, and there was no information for him to understand. However, Zero still chose to explore new territories without hesitation. When the fleet carrying Zero and countless artificial intelligence soldiers headed for the outer space, Zero's new journey began. After a full 700 years of travel, this huge fleet of intelligent machines invaded a world that had yet to fully mature. The first battle was a complete victory. Using that world as a base, Zero once again began to upgrade himself and his subordinate army. It was still an endless mining, a destructive search for resources. This world was completely destroyed by Zero. This plundering had allowed Zero to find a new way to obtain resources. The embryonic form of the future famous Celestial Armament Army was formed at that moment. Up until now, the Heaven Artifact Corps led by Zero was a demon in the eyes of many outer space forces. Everywhere they went was a mess. All the intelligent artifact soldiers were like cold-blooded killing machines, showing no mercy to any life. This time, Lu Wu targeted this extraterrestrial force because they had a large amount of resources. More importantly, the Celestial Armament Army had a special energy source called the Rainbow Devil. Lu Wu once converted this energy into soul power out of curiosity. In the end, he was surprised to find that this energy could be converted into a lot of soul coins. Therefore, from that moment on, Lu Wu had marked this force as dead. It did not matter if they were strong or not, as long as they had soul coins, they would be finished. This time, the players challenged the artificial intelligence, Cold Enemy Mode. Chapter 770. In fact, after understanding the history of the rise of the Heavenly Armament Legion, Lu Wu realized that he actually had contact with this force. There was a Blue Valley ruins in the third region of the main world's Naraka. When the artifact was unlocked, it stated that this was once the base of the Blue Valley tribe from the outer world. Lu Wu had a deep impression of this. After all, the growth model of the Blue Valley tribe was incompatible with the environment of the underworld. They used a technological growth model. Therefore, Lu Wu guessed that perhaps the Blue Valley tribe escaped from the Crimson Planet because of Zero's appearance. However, Lu Wu was sure that the Blue Valley tribe did not immediately settle in the Three Realms. This was because the artifact also recorded a piece of information, which came from the artificial intelligence Yak. It described the origin of Yak in detail. It was not born in the Crimson Rainbow Planet, but came from the force of another world, Skynet. And the destruction of this force was actually caused by annihilation. P.S. This timeline can be viewed in Chapter 366. Life 3-0, Annihilation? Me? In this regard, Lu Wu came up with a timeline. Timeline 1. Millions of years ago, the Crimson Rainbow Planet was occupied by Zero. The remaining Blue Valley tribe escaped to the outer world with the unactivated superintelligence. Timeline 2. Zero controlled the Crimson Rainbow Planet and began to excavate resources endlessly. At the same time, the Blue Valley tribe, who escaped to the outer world, established a new civilization called Skynet in another world. Timeline 3. Zero began to conquer the outer world for eternity. At the same time, the Skynet civilization began to develop again. Timeline 4. Since the fourth timeline had not happened yet, Lu Wu could only speculate that his previous self might have discovered the secret of the Heavenly Armament Legion when he was annihilating them in the previous timeline. He had even destroyed the Skynet civilization that he had painstakingly developed with him. Of course, it was also possible that he destroyed the Skynet civilization that the Blue Valley tribe rebuilt during the conquest. Timeline 5. The Blue Valley tribe wandered to the outer world again. They might have stationed in other worlds along the way, but when they actually came to the Three Realms, it was already after the War of the Three Realms. However, Lu Wu had already returned to the main world by then. After all, he would only stay here for 10,000 years. After all, it had been millions of years since the Blue Valley clan left the Red Rainbow Star. During this period, Zero had become an overlord. At that time, the Three Realms had yet to take shape, and there were no resources. The Blue Valley clan escaping to the Three Realms was the most foolish and unrealistic move. After all, Lu Wu had only created the Three Realms 2,000 years ago, so the Blue Valley tribe would not have arrived before he did. However, the Blue Valley tribe had left the Red Rainbow planet for millions of years. This meant that the Heaven's net force recorded in the information should be in another world, and not the Three Realms. As for whether Acker was the super artificial intelligence system that was taken away by the Blue Valley tribe, Lu Wu guessed that it was not. After all, there was still a huge gap between Acker's ability and the super AI Zero described in the intelligence report. Meanwhile, the super artificial intelligence system that was taken away was the same existence as Zero, possessing the exact same functions. It was just that one had been activated, while the other had been sealed. However, no matter what happened in the future, Lu Wu was prepared to destroy the Heavenly Armament Army this time. At this moment, a majestic army of players descended upon the Red Rainbow Star. This was the area where the Heavenly Armament Army's main base was located. It was also the area where the Heavenly Armament Army stored a large amount of resources. What Lu Wu wanted was all the resources here. Their figures passed through the realm barrier and arrived at this barren red world. As their figures appeared, the satellites immediately detected their presence. Countless fortresses on the ground were instantly activated and activated. A dense barrage of missiles rose into the sky and attacked the million-strong army of players. Seeing this, Lu Wu took a deep breath and said in the live chat channel, "Move around freely. Rob this place and let the Heavenly Armament Army's robots know who the F***king boss of the extraterrestrial forces is." Hearing Lu Wu's words, the players were a little excited. "Dog, sniff around and see if there are any spiritual materials. We'll get them first. We'll strike first and gain the upper hand." Guyu looked at the dog and said. Hearing this, the dog nodded. Then, a green light appeared on the tip of his nose. After sniffing lightly, he dashed toward the ground. Seeing this scene, a large wave of players behind them followed. "What are you doing?" Guyu was stunned. "If there are spiritual materials, let's share them together. It's not right to monopolize them. We don't have the ability to look for spiritual materials, so we'll follow you. Everyone who sees it has a share. In a few days, I'm going to find some stupid officials to help me break through to the ancient god realm. 100 million soul coins is too expensive. We have to save up, so please forgive us, Boss Gu." At this moment, the army of players landed on the ground with great momentum. Following the bombardment of the bullet screen, the players' abilities were displayed at this moment. The first to attack was a godly state master who mastered sound wave. He took a deep breath and released a sound wave ripple in front of him. Instantly, a dense barrage of missiles exploded in front of them, clearing the obstacles for the players to advance. At this moment, countless mage players at the back also released their rule spells. It was a spectacular scene. A rain of fire fell from the sky like meteors, covering the entire sky. It was as if a catastrophe from the extraterrestrial world had arrived. As the meteor shower fell, there was an explosion below and a large number of steel fortresses were destroyed. The moment the players landed, the battle fortresses that were targeted by the mage players had already lost the ability to continue fighting. However, the battle had only just begun. It was not over yet. The alert level of the entire planet was raised to the highest. A large number of intelligent machines buried deep underground were continuously transported to the surface. Countless missile silos were also activated at this moment and began to aim at the location where the players were landing according to the command of the artificial intelligence of this base. The power of a technological civilization was on full display at this moment. The rapid transmission of battle orders and the precise targeting of the enemy's area were all completed in a short period of time. The entire world had entered a state of war. At this moment, the intensity of the attacks that the players had to face continued to increase. There were even laser cannons fired by satellite weapons from outer space. This was the time for the players who majored in physique to perform. Yuan Fang was the first to rise into the sky and face the laser cannons that were descending from the sky. Boom! The surging energy slanted on the surface of Yuan Fang's body, causing him to scream in pain. However, when the players heard this shout, they felt excited no matter how they looked at it. As the laser cannons washed over him, his mastery of his divine ability increased rapidly. Yuan Fang was in pain but also happy. However, it only lasted for 3 seconds before the laser cannon's satellite in outer space was shattered by an unknown force. This was one of Yuan Fang's strongest abilities, commonly known as damage reflection. At this stage of cultivation, regardless of whether the opponent was alive or not, once Yuan Fang's damage reflection was activated, it would transfer part of the power that he received to the source of the attack. As the strongest tank among the players, his damage output was to take the hit. The performance of the assassin players was equally eye-catching at this moment. They moved through space and traveled through the void. Every time their figures flickered, they would appear near an attacking fortress. As they waved their sharp blades, afterimages appeared and pierced through the steel armor with ease. The burst of power even destroyed the interior of the fortress. The combat power displayed by millions of godly state warriors at this moment was enough to shake the world. The war broke out. The intelligent machines were continuously sent to this battlefield by the spaceships and began to counterattack the players. The players were delighted to see the intelligent machines. This was because every intelligent machine had the energy that they needed, and each of them was worth about 3,000 soul coins. Their combat power was generally only at the Ghost King stage. Even though there were some Ghost Emperors and even demigod-level intelligent machines, to the players, their destructive power was only SOSO. A large-scale massacre began. Healer, stop healing me. These weak machines can't break through my godly state defense. Hurry up and follow me to pick up the energy cores. They're all money. Healer on the other side, if you pick up our team's energy cores again, I won't go easy on you. Backstab warning for the first time. Hurry up and clear an area. When the mechanical army arrives, it will definitely be difficult. The heavenly machinery army is definitely not as weak as we thought. Otherwise, how would they be able to plunder in the outer zone? The team voice chat, the team voice chat, the guild voice chat, and so on. It was a mess. The players had their own task. Some were in charge of picking up the energy cores left by the intelligent machines after they were destroyed, some were in charge of charging forward, and some were in charge of harvesting. After so many battles in the outer zone, the players had a tacit understanding of each other. The only thing that did not change was the old tradition from the battles, which was to kill the bastards who stole the kill. As time passed, the counterattack that the players encountered became more and more intense. An endless stream of war weapons were transported out from the underground transport shaft and sent to the battlefield by the transport aircraft that had been prepared beforehand. At this moment, the intelligent machine army that had evolved into silicon-based lifeforms arrived. As countless super battleships appeared in the sky, countless huge metal boxes were dropped from the air. These metal boxes would quickly assemble after landing. The silicon-based lifeform warriors that had developed independent thinking and consciousness had arrived. These silicon-based lifeforms were not like the transformers that the players saw in the movies. Instead, they were pure killing weapons, and their fixed form was completely binding. They could change their stance to adapt to the current battle situation at any time and place. Every silicon-based warrior had the ability of a god, and there was a huge number of them. Their appearance instantly brought great pressure to the players. This was because not only did they have strong physical defense, but they also had extremely lethal melee and long-range weapons. Behind them, countless rat-sized mechanical lifeforms swarmed into the battlefield and began to climb on the surface of the various war weapons, rapidly repairing the mechanical lifeforms that were heavily damaged by the players. The robot rats only needed over 30 seconds to repair a silicon-based warrior that could not fight, and they only needed about 3 seconds to repair an ordinary intelligent machine soldier. They were extremely efficient. They wreaked havoc on the battlefield like a tidal wave, awakening a large number of robots that had lost their combat abilities and allowing them to re-enter the battle. Apart from assisting on the battlefield, these robot rats would even choose to bite the players at the critical moment and self-destruct. With the control of the behind-the-scenes artificial intelligence, each robot rat was not running around aimlessly, but moving extremely efficiently. Multitasking wasn't difficult for cultivation-type beings, but controlling millions of mechanical lives at the same time wasn't something that cultivation-type beings could do at all. However, for the artificial intelligence with terrifying computing power, it was a piece of cake. After the countless battle data generated on the battlefield flowed into the artificial intelligence's processing library, it could come up with a plan to adapt to the situation within a few seconds. At this moment, each robot rat was being controlled precisely, constantly creating battle advantages for the silicon-based lifeforms on the battlefield. They could be destroyed, but they wouldn't make mistakes. This was the terrifying part of the growth of the technological side. This was the first time Lu Wu had encountered such a difficult force since he came to the Outland. Moreover, this was only the main base of the Heavenly Armament Army. In the outside world, the Heavenly Armament Army had even larger deployments, especially in the glittering world where the Mechanical Lord Zero was, where the most elite intelligent machine army was stationed. However, faced with such a predicament, the players' ferocity was stimulated. We never retreat from war. If we say we'll destroy you, we'll destroy you. At this moment, their divine bodies emitted colorful halos. Countless rules emerged from the players' bodies and circled around them. The collision between the cultivation growth system and the technological growth system had officially begun. Chapter 771. The intensity of the war escalated as the endless transport spaceships arrived from across space. The robot rats that were wreaking havoc on the battlefield and the silicon-based warriors with powerful individual combat power were far from the Heaven Machinations Army's trump card. As the Heaven Machinations Army that grew in technology, they often fought with those organizations that grew in cultivation during the extraterrestrial plundering. Zero had long since come up with many plans to fight against them. As several huge transport spaceships arrived from across space again, huge metal tanks descended from the sky. Before these metal tanks even landed, they aimed their cannons at the area where the players were densely packed and opened fire. Seeing this, the warrior players immediately wanted to charge forward and take the damage. However, what surprised them was that these metal tanks did not shoot out cannons but clumps of purple sticky substances. These substances disintegrated into small water droplets in the air and sprinkled around the battlefield like raindrops. Then, a scene that surprised the players happened. The spiritual energy in the surroundings began to decrease rapidly and was sucked dry in the blink of an eye. Very soon, the surroundings became a spiritual energy vacuum. This was one of the ultimate techniques that Zero had developed to fight against organizations that grew in cultivation. Soul-absorbing cannon. The metal tanks were filled with a special liquid made by grinding and improving the soul-absorbing stone. This liquid was usually sealed inside the metal tanks that had no spiritual energy. As long as it was released and came into contact with the areas with spiritual energy nearby, it would absorb a large amount of spiritual energy and create an area without spiritual energy. This technique of the Heaven Machinations army had been tested in prolonged battles. Without the support of an endless supply of spiritual energy, many cultivators would fall into a predicament due to the lack of spiritual energy, and their combat power would decrease greatly. Even the powerhouses who had a large amount of spiritual energy in their bodies would become cautious in the face of this technique. They would not dare to casually release spells that consumed a large amount of spiritual energy in case they ran out of spiritual energy at a critical moment. This was also indirectly weakening the enemy's combat power. Zero had once relied on this move to defeat a force that was stronger than her. Because of this, she had plundered a large amount of resources from that world. However, to the players, although they were surprised by the Heaven Machinations army's response, they were not worried that there would be any problems. This was because it was impossible to run out of spiritual energy. It would only cost a little soul coins. Therefore, the players did not care at all. They would release spells whenever they needed to and did not care about conserving spiritual energy at all. Earning soul coins was the most important thing. Obviously, the enemy's artificial intelligence system didn't expect this. The players were still savagely attacking the machine army, completely unaffected by the soul-absorbing cannons. Actually, the thing that gave the players the biggest headache right now wasn't the silicon-based warriors with powerful individual battle prowess. Instead, it was the mechanical rats that covered the ground. It was as if there was no end to them, and they were really difficult to deal with. They carried energy fragments and nano-repair fluid with them. Working together to repair a machine only required 5 mechanical rats and 3 seconds. Even the mechanical intelligence soldiers that had their energy cores taken away by the players could recover in a short period of time and join the battle once again. Therefore, the players had already realized that as long as the robot rat couldn't be dealt with, the battle would not end. The live chat channel was filled with discussions as they tried to come up with countermeasures. At this moment, a voice sounded in the live chat channel. "Let me do it. I should be able to handle it." As his voice fell, the sky suddenly became gloomy. Surging corpse aura appeared out of nowhere and condensed into black crows in the sky, letting out ear-piercing cries. After they condensed, they pounced on the mechanical mice on the ground, grabbed them, and swallowed them. As time passed, the number of black crows that filled the sky increased. They were like dark clouds that covered the sky and the sun, surging in the battlefield. Seeing this, he grinned. Then, he reached out and patted the corpse aura bag. Immediately, surging corpse aura surged out again and condensed into black coffins in front of him. The moment the coffins opened, familiar characters such as Cha-Na and Hidorigami appeared. It had been 2,000 years since the expedition in the extraterrestrial region. At this moment, he had long been apotheosized. The zombie spirits in his hands had also been refined into the god's state by him, and their battle prowess was still as strong as ever. The zombie spirit army was mobilized at this moment. Hui's strategy was very similar to the battle plan of the mechanical mouse army. The main role of the mechanical mouse army was to assist the mechanical army in attacking and repairing the battlefield. When necessary, they would self-destruct to create an advantage for the mechanical army. This was also the case for Hui's strategy. The purpose of these black crows that were condensed from corpse aura was to transform into corpse aura to repair the zombie spirits' bodies when they were injured. There was nothing special about their battle prowess. However, at this moment it had a miraculous effect. The black crows fought against the mechanical mice, while the zombie spirits fought against the silicon-based warriors. After the appearance of Hui's Black Crow army, the pressure on the players was relieved. They immediately seized the opportunity to attack. This time, the players had learned their lesson. As long as they defeated and destroyed a silicon-based warrior, they would not wait for the mechanical mice to repair it. They would decisively store its body together with its energy core into the channel. They would not even give it a chance to repair itself. Under such an attack, the players once again gained the upper hand. They followed the warrior players and advanced in all directions with the area they were at as the center, expanding the battle circle. This was an invasion, and defending was not the style of the players. Their attacks were unusually fierce, and they did not show any signs of weakening their attacks. Under such attacks, the mechanical army retreated step by step. Under the control of the artificial intelligence system, they began to retreat defensively. Although the technology-oriented heavenly mechanic army had extremely efficient tactical combinations and coordination abilities, and they would occasionally appear in the battle with black technology weapons that left the players speechless. However, there was one thing that did not change. The overall battle prowess of the players was much higher than that of the heavenly mechanic army. The artificial intelligence system retreated defensively, choosing to fight a protracted battle, reducing the degree of battle damage, and then looking for an opportunity to counterattack. However, the artificial intelligence system did not understand the players at all. It could only roughly judge the players' battle prowess to formulate a counterattack plan. However, how could the artificial intelligence system know the players' secrets? In terms of endurance, the players had never been afraid of anyone. This was because as soon as the players died, they would be kept into the artifact space by Lu Wu to nourish their souls for 3 hours, and then they would be thrown into the battlefield again. Since the beginning of the Baiki hegemony struggle, the players had always been happy to see an evenly matched battle. This was because an evenly matched battle was an advantage to the players. After all, there was a huge difference between the consumption of soul coins and the harvest. A protracted battle was a process for the players to earn soul coins. Therefore, the artificial intelligence system that controlled this world was wrong from the beginning. The players were not ordinary cultivators, and they could not formulate a counterattack plan based on the standard of an ordinary cultivator force. What it was doing was exactly what the players wanted. It could be said that it was not fighting against the players, but it was constantly filling up the players' wallets with soul coins. Its plan to fight against the players was a process of spending money to feed the players. No matter how smart the artificial intelligence system was, it would never have thought of this. At this time, the artificial intelligence system seemed to think that it was in control of the whole situation, and from time to time, it would seize the opportunity to launch a counterattack to deplete the players' battle prowess. The battle lasted for 5 days and 5 nights. The players were still surrounded, and they were even forced back to the starting point a few times. However, the players were bursting with joy in their hearts. Up until now, they had harvested a large number of energy cores. If they sold them to the mall, they would be able to earn a lot of soul coins. Therefore, the players did not feel tired at all. Instead, they hoped that the war would last a little longer. However, 5 days had passed, and the mainframe of this world had already discovered the problem with the players. It also knew that the war plan that it had formulated was wrong. Through the satellite monitoring, the artificial intelligence system was constantly watching the battlefield. It had calculated the number of invading creatures. Due to the chaos of the battlefield and the cultivator force's ability to summon creatures or create clones, it could not come up with an accurate number. However, the approximate number was around 1.2 million. This could be said to be extremely accurate, and it had already estimated the specific number of players. In the war, whenever the mechanical army killed the players, the artificial intelligence system would show the number of enemy forces' battle losses. Up until now, the artificial intelligence system had calculated the number of 382,352. However, at this moment, through the satellite observation, the overall number of players had remained at around 1.02 million. There was almost no decrease in members, and sometimes it was even increasing. Such a number change seemed extremely abnormal to the artificial intelligence system. It was as if new creatures were constantly joining the battle, becoming one of them to fight against them. In response, the artificial intelligence system began to analyze the situation. Through observation and data access, it wanted to find out why this scene was happening that it could not understand. One of the strong points of technology was analysis and data support. However, the war had continued for another 3 days, and the artificial intelligence system still could not find any information that could explain this scene. It had fallen into a state of incomprehension. Although it was still controlling the situation of the war, it no longer had any confidence in its decision to win. In every battle, the artificial intelligence system would give a number of probability of victory after contact with the enemy force. At the start of this war, the artificial intelligence system had given them a probability of victory, 98. 612,312,415%. Although the players were very powerful, the AI estimated their chances of victory based on analyzing the direction of the war. Since this was their home ground, they had an endless supply of strategic resources, and the strength that the players had shown in the battle against the mechanical army was not absolute suppression, which was why it gave them a probability of almost certain victory. However, the war had continued for 8 days, and this probability kept dropping due to the addition of many uncertain factors. Until now, the artificial intelligence system's probability of victory had dropped to 57. 921,413%, and this number was still dropping. In response, the artificial intelligence system tried to find a solution. Since the leader of the Heavenly Armament Army, Zero, was not in this world at the moment, but had gone to the glittering jewel world in the outskirts, and the artificial intelligence system did not have the ability to cross the distant space to contact her, it was obviously unrealistic to ask for support. It could only rely on its own judgment to win this blow. In the subsequent war, the artificial intelligence system changed its battle strategy again and again, but the probability of victory kept dropping. When it fell below 50%, the artificial intelligence system finally decided to take emergency measures. Under absolute rationality, it made a choice and used the extraterrestrial rail cannons. This decision meant that it had given up on the mechanical army that was still entangled with the players. As the 100 rail cannons moved, beams of light from the outskirts crashed into the area where Lu Wu and the players were. At this moment, the sky was shrouded in blue. Before the attack landed, the horrifying energy had already hit them in the face, and the wind was howling. All the players could not help but look up at the sky, then took a deep breath. The moment this light beam touched the ground, even the players with godly bodies could not withstand it. The entire world trembled at this moment. When the light dissipated, a deep pit with a diameter of 580 kilometers appeared on the ground. The underground magma flowed out of the cracks on the ground, and everything within sight had turned into a charred color. After this attack, all the players, except for Lu Wu, were collectively sent back to the artifact space, and they looked at each other in dismay. "You died too? You too? What a coincidence!" The atmosphere was a little awkward. In the outside world, Lu Wu's clothes were tattered, and his body was covered in black. At this moment, he was looking at the deep pit below with a dumbfounded expression. This is not going according to the rules. Suddenly using a big move, I am now a commander without an army? Chapter 772. Lu Wu did not suffer much damage from this attack, but the players were all vaporized. The Heavenly Spectre Corps' mechanical army was also wiped out by this attack. This was the decision made by the mastermind behind the scenes after confirming that their chances of winning had dropped to 50%. Although they had suffered heavy losses, and even this world was affected and severely damaged. For the mastermind behind the scenes, its judgment of whether to use the Armageddon weapon was based on the direction of the war, and not on their current disadvantage. Up until now, the mastermind clearly knew that if they continued fighting like this, their chances of winning would continue to drop. Moreover, as the invading force's advantage continued to expand, the battlefield would become extremely scattered, and the power of the Armageddon weapon would also decrease. If they could not wipe out this invading force in one go, they would face a new crisis. Therefore, under such circumstances, after analyzing the direction of the war, the mastermind made an absolutely rational decision. This was the terrifying part of the masterminds born from the development of technology. They did not have the many emotions that life would have when thinking about problems, which would cause them to be indecisive and unable to make decisions. After analyzing the data and confirming that it was feasible, the mastermind would execute a terrifying plan without hesitation. The rail cannon was one of the Heavenly Spectre Corps' trump cards, and it would cause irreparable damage to this world after being used. The mastermind would not use it unless it was absolutely necessary, or if its chances of winning were less than 20%. However, this time, the mastermind came to a conclusion that if they continued fighting like this, their chances of winning would definitely drop to 20%, so it used the Armageddon weapon in advance. This attack left the Earth in ruins. Looking at this world from the outworld, one could see a crimson pit that was still slowly expanding and burning. This attack had a surprising effect. Apart from Lu Wu, the entire army of players was annihilated. Even the godly state players were unable to withstand the attack of this world-destroying weapon. Those who could become the invading force of the outworld all had powerful trump cards to use against their enemies, and the Heavenly Spectre Corps was no exception. This time, they had taught Lu Wu a good lesson. However, after a brief moment of shock, Lu Wu did not think much of it. After all, it was not the first time the players had been wiped out, and he was already used to it. At this moment, he was just surprised by the Heavenly Spectre Corps' powerful rail cannon. What Lu Wu needed to do now was to find the mastermind and the main resource storage point of this world. Originally, there was a resource storage point near their area, but everything was destroyed along with the rail cannon. Lu Wu felt extremely regretful. After some thought, Lu Wu used the artifact to envelop the world and began searching for the mastermind. After locking onto the target, Lu Wu tore the dimension apart with one hand and descended to the center of the world. Seeing Lu Wu arrival, the mastermind confirmed that the invaders had discovered its presence. In the satellite transmission, the mastermind saw Lu Wu, and saw Lu, who was alone. There was only one possibility for him to be able to remain unscathed under the attack of a world-destroying weapon. This was because Wu and could to Lu King not dead. There it was calm. King was calmed. Was it death? Emperor was not dead, was not killed. Just as he had thought, the invader in the image clenched his fist, and the golden specks of light around his body gathered on the surface of his fist before he slammed it down. The ground shook violently, and a deep pit appeared, exposing the metal surface of the underground base. Watching the figure descend, tear apart the outer metal surface and enter the base, a series of data appeared in the eyes of the artificial intelligence sitting in the main control room, and then a voice sounded in the base. The self-destruct system has been activated. If you do not cancel it, it will be destroyed in 30 seconds. The countdown sounded, but the intelligence system was still very calm. She stared quietly at Lu Wu, who was deep in the base on the surveillance screen, without any thoughts in her mind. It had emotions and fear, but even if these emotions surfaced, it would not affect its absolute rationality. It knew that it had lost, and the battle was over. However, it was loyal to Zero, so it chose to use self-destruction to make this intruder pay a price, even if it couldn't kill him. Before death descended, the intelligence system took a picture of the battle and sent it to outer space through a satellite. He couldn't be certain whether or not this message would be received by Sovereign Zero, but this was the only thing he could do. Ruler, Chess bids you farewell. I wish you eternal life as soon as possible. As he waited, flames rose in the base, and then a huge explosion shook the entire underground space. At the same time, the ground cracked and a mushroom cloud rose slowly. This time, Lu Wu was still caught off guard, and he was stunned by the explosion. What the hell, relying on the powerful emperor physique. He didn't suffer much damage, but this made Lu Wu's heart ache. Invading this world was for resources, but who would have thought that the technological artificial intelligence system would be so ruthless, not leaving any resources for him even if it died? Although the players had earned a lot of soul coins in the previous war, Lu Wu never disliked having more resources. This was the first time Lu Wu had witnessed the power of a technological civilization. It was too much. Not only was it difficult to deal with in the battle, but the last two self-destructs were extremely willful. Lu Wu did not encounter any other technological forces during his time in the outer space. However, these technological forces relied on life to control technology, not the other way around. Therefore, the emotions of living creatures would affect their judgment when using technological weapons. This time, the performance of the Heavenly Machina Legion really showed Lu Wu the horror of technology. Just as Lil Bailey said, every growth system had its strengths and weaknesses, and the cultivation system was called the strongest because it had the most perfect growth system. On the other hand, Lu Wu was impressed by Zero's technological growth. This was the first time he was impressed during his expeditions in the extraterrestrial land. If it weren't for the player's resurrection ability, the various choices made by the Heavenly Machina Legion during the battle would definitely make them suffer. At this moment, the plundering war had officially ended. Lu Wu landed and rested for a while. 3 hours later, he summoned all the players out of the artifact space. Looking at the players' helpless faces, Lu Wu understood their feelings very well. After all, they were here to plunder resources, but the Heavenly Machina Legion actually destroyed them. We're all plundering forces, but they didn't even leave a little bit of resources for us. How disrespectful, what a bastard! This is the first time I've met such a ruthless force, so ruthless. I'll never play with such a force again, they're so heartless. Stop crying, I've already earned 980,000 soul coins from this battle. Shut up, I earned 50,000 soul coins and thought that this battle would probably take a long time, so I bought a lot of tools in the shop, but in the end, I'll stop talking, let me doubt my life. Stupid official, hurry up and take out the death list. Let's move on to the next target. We've made enemies with the Heavenly Machina Legion, we'll teach them a lesson in the future. Hearing the players' discussions, Lu Wu took out the death list and started looking for his next target. Soon, he had his eyes on a new force. Death Legion, extraterrestrial plundering force. Lu Wu did not have much contact with this force, but because this force was relatively close to the three realms, Lu Wu made it his target. Compared to the Heavenly Machina Legion, this force's strength was much weaker. It was far from the overlord level of the extraterrestrial plundering force. Therefore, Lu Wu was confident that he would be able to plunder this force. The birth of this legion was also clearly described in the intelligence. This force first appeared in the world of Duoma, and the reason for its appearance was extremely special. That world was originally developed with technology, but unlike the Heavenly Machina Legion, it was creatures that controlled technology, unlike the Heavenly Machina Legion, which controlled technology. However, that situation was also before the birth of the Death Legion. After their birth, the original growth system had long been overturned. According to the intelligence provided by the Holy Spirit clan, the Death Legion was born in the world of Duoma, where life fought against viruses all year round. As an existence that was interdependent with life, the purpose of the virus's existence was not to kill the host, but to absorb nutrients from the host's body. The longer the host lived, the more beneficial it would be for the virus. They only wanted to replicate and preserve their genetic material, and killing the host was only one of the results. In simple words, the virus accidentally killed the host in order to reproduce. However, as a force that grew with technology, the creatures there began to continuously research drugs to fight against the virus in order to continue living. Natural selection, survival of the fittest. The most important part of this concept was the survival of the fittest. The same applied to the virus. The creatures in that world developed antibodies and vaccines to fight against the virus, and the virus would also evolve to adapt to the antibodies and vaccines. It was a never-ending run. The virus continued to evolve and grow in the fight, until one day a special virus was born. In that world, it was called the death virus, which meant death. This virus swept the world at an extremely fast speed, and its incubation period was extremely long. When it was discovered, it was already irreversible. The creatures in that world suddenly discovered that a large area of their friends suddenly had a high fever, their throats and tongues were congested, and their voices became hoarse. What was even more terrifying was that their bodies began to rot, and their consciousness became slack under this disease. The virus crisis this time was far more terrifying than imagined. Due to the convenience of transportation brought by the growth of technology, it only took 3 days for this technological world to fall, and a large number of creatures turned into zombies. They had no consciousness, only one thought, and that was to replenish their nutrients. In fact, these creatures had already been controlled by the virus, and all their needs were to satisfy the needs of the virus in their bodies to reproduce, so they needed to replenish their nutrients. Therefore, the creatures infected by this virus would bite and devour all life around them. Not only was the crisis not under control, because of the virus's infectious nature, many of the biologists who researched this virus and wanted to develop antibodies were also infected and turned into zombies. Fighting against the virus was obviously not realistic. The terrifying zombie tide swept the world, and in a short period of time, 80% of the creatures turned into zombies. Fortunately, in the end, some of the creatures escaped from the densely populated areas and built defensive structures, and began the long road of fighting against the zombies. Because zombies had no consciousness, even if there were only 20% of the uninfected creatures left, the uninfected creatures still had an absolute advantage in terms of strength. They were only afraid of being infected, and not afraid of the zombies after being converted by the virus. They had many ways to eliminate the zombie horde. During this period of time, the zombies without consciousness were eliminated in large numbers, and the surviving creatures began to expand the territory occupied by them. But the crisis always came quietly, catching people off guard. One day, after a zombie devoured a large number of lives and obtained sufficient nutrients, it gave birth to a weak consciousness. In other words, this zombie evolved into a new life form. A new crisis came. The zombies that coexisted with the virus had a powerful body that ordinary life in that world did not have, and some zombies even gave birth to a special ability to control the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Their appearance changed the original disadvantage of the zombies. This war lasted for a long time, and the zombies' advantage continued to expand in the war, and from time to time, there were lives from the other camp that were infected and joined their side. The final result was self-evident: that world was occupied by zombies. But the virus in their bodies constantly tortured all the zombies. They wanted to devour fresh life to replenish their nutrients, but at this moment, all the life in the world had been eaten. A strong sense of hunger tormented them. They began to devour their own kind, but after devouring their own kind, not only was the hunger not solved, but as the new virus entered their bodies, the hunger became stronger. They frantically searched for food, but found that there was no food left. That period of time was the darkest and craziest period of this world, until one day a zombie king made a suggestion. Since there is no food for us here, should we go to the outside world? Because of this suggestion, the future Death Legion was born. When they first came into contact with the outside world, a large number of zombies died. Even if they evolved to fly, they were horrified to find that the virus in their bodies could not survive in the outside world. But the zombies did not give up. They kept trying, and a large number of their kind died. Finally, they evolved the ability to survive in the outside world. While the virus brought them pain, it also gave them a strong ability to evolve, or it could be called adaptability. They adapted to survive in the outside world. And so, the massacre in the outside world began. They were different from the Heavenly Armament Legion. Although they were known as the plunder force of the outside world, they craved fresh life the most. They treated the many lives in the outside world as nutrients to satisfy their body's need. Every time they arrived in a world, they would infect a large number of lives and become members of their force. At the same time, they would devour uninfected lives to satisfy the virus in their bodies, and at the same time, they would evolve and become stronger. During the plunder in the outside world, they became smarter and stronger. They never cared if it was cruel or not. Everything was just to survive, and the way they survived was to turn other lives into food. After understanding the process of the formation of this force, Lu Wu decided to let this force become the player's food, soul coins. Let's compete to see who can eat more. Chapter 773. Although the profits from this invasion of Red Rainbow Planet were not as much as Lu Wu had imagined, at least it was worth it. After putting away his regret, Lu Wu led the players out of this world. They were heading towards the next target on the death list. After activating the artifact's space jump, Lu Wu arrived at a huge green world. This time, Lu Wu was going up against the Dark Funeral Legion, an extraterritorial force that had occupied this world for less than 1,000 years. Unlike the Heavenly Armament Legion, the Dark Funeral Legion moved in unison. Almost all of their forces were concentrated in this world, so it was not easy to deal with them. They could only be defeated slowly. However, this kind of war was exactly what Lu Wu yearned for. After all, earning soul coins was the key. When the army of players broke through the realm barrier and descended, some zombies in the world below looked up at the sky. They smelled the scent of fresh flesh and blood. Although the players had been digitized, their digitized bodies were no different from real bodies of flesh and blood. Therefore, many powerful zombies had already discovered their presence. As zombies with an extreme thirst for life and sensitivity, they craved the flesh and blood of the strong. They were obsessed with the flesh and blood of the players. At this moment, they led their respective groups of zombies into the sky. They came from all directions of this world like a tide of zombies, gathering into a dense mass in the sky. The war was about to begin before the players even landed. Although Lu Wu already knew that all the creatures in the Dark Funeral Legion were crazy, he did not expect them to be this crazy. As an extraterritorial force, they should know the cruelty of the extraterritorial struggle. Shouldn't they first investigate the enemy's combat power before taking corresponding countermeasures? Was it starting now? Lu Wu was speechless. However, since they were already here, he had nothing else to say. The war was about to begin. Get ready, the Dark Funeral Legion is coming. Just a reminder, they can eat a lot. Lu Wu's voice sounded in the live chat channel, covering the players' discussion. Hearing Lu Wu's words, the players were indifferent. After so many years of fighting in the extraterritorial, they had seen all kinds of species. As long as they had soul coins, they would hammer them to death. Looking at the eager players, a smile appeared on Lu Wu's face. Soon, countless black dots appeared in the players' vision. They were approaching at an extremely fast speed. Although they were all zombies, the forms of these creatures were completely different. There were humans, animals, and even twisted plants. But after being infected by the Dark Funeral virus, they were collectively referred to as zombies, and they were all members of the Dark Funeral Legion. Many of these creatures didn't even come from the same world. Instead, they had joined the Dark Funeral Legion's extraterrestrial plundering. After being controlled by the virus, they had long lost their memories of the past and turned into new life forms. At this moment, they were craving for the fresh meat of the players. They wanted to devour it greedily. At this moment, the players launched their attacks. After a very imposing shout, millions of players split into countless small teams and rushed towards the zombie horde. For this battle, The players were full of confidence, at least for now. However, after coming into contact with the horde of zombies, the players suddenly realized that the zombies did not play by the usual rules. They did not fight with them at all. Instead, they pounced on them and bit their bodies. Faced with such a situation, the players were dumbfounded. At the back, Lu Wu couldn't help but laugh when he saw this. There were many races and forces in the extraterrestrial world. There were bound to be a few strange forces, and the Dark Funeral Legion was one of them. According to the information, the members of this legion had changed over and over again during the extraterrestrial expedition. If it weren't for the continuous injection of infected fresh blood, the legion would have been wiped out a long time ago. This was because their fighting style was too brutal. They did not fight with their enemies at all. Instead, they would bite their enemies to death. To the zombies, death was not as scary as starvation. They were real foodies. After a brief moment of shock, the players began to fight back. However, the zombies still did not resist. They maintained their attitude of eating the enemies even if they were beaten to death. After trying to resist for a while, many players could not help but retreat. They wanted to escape and find an opportunity to attack again. However, the zombies loved to eat fresh food. They followed closely and bit all the way. In particular, the healer players who had mastered the natural law of life attracted the zombies' interest. They would not stop until they caught one. They used their lives to explain how important food was to them. Moreover, the zombies had a very similar characteristic to the players. They would beat their companions who tried to snatch their food. Whoever tried to snatch their food would die. They were extremely ruthless. When they were angry, they would swallow their companions and players together. The formation of the players was in a mess. They scattered in all directions and their mentality was broken. I just made an energy ball and wanted to kill a zombie that tried to bite me. In the end, the zombie ate the energy ball along with my right arm, and then its body exploded. What AF * King Psycho? Help, I'm surrounded. I'm going to be eaten. They're so fierce. They must be crazy. They want to bite me even if they die. Why do they look like they're enjoying eating me? There's no nutrition at all. F * CK, I just saw the dog in the distance being surrounded. I think he's become a dog meat feast. They're crazier than us. Let's go, let's go. It was the first time that the players came into contact with the Dark Funeral Legion, which was really crazy. They came with the idea of fighting and killing their enemies. They did not expect the Dark Funeral Legion to not fight them at all. Their minds were full of food. What the players could not accept the most was that even if the Dark Funeral Legion ate their flesh, they would not get any nutrition at all. The flesh would turn into black fog in their stomachs and return to the artifact. So why did they look like they were enjoying it? Faced with the aggressive Dark Funeral Legion, the players were furious. Many players spoke in the live chat channel, saying that they would kill them even if they were eaten. It was simply intolerable. This time, the players, who had never been reasonable, had also encountered an unreasonable enemy force. The players' motto: as long as there are soul coins, they will kill you even if they die. The zombies' motto: as long as there are soul coins, they will eat you even if they die. When the two strange forces met, the scene became very strange. The most similar thing between the two forces was that they would completely give up on defense when they went crazy. The battle scene became, you eat me, I'll punch you. Let's see if you eat me first or I'll punch you to death first. Both sides gave up on defense and went crazy with each other. However, there were players who were not afraid of zombies at all. They were the players from the Asia server. These players took the path of genetic growth. They had the core ability of devouring and could devour lives to evolve. Although they had bought rules and chose to cultivate their growth during the years they were fighting in the Outland, their foundation was still there. The players from the Asia server had sensed the presence of the virus on the zombies, and their bodies had reacted. Genetic tentacles grew out of their bodies and wrapped around the zombies to consume their flesh and blood. Their abilities were mutated again in this way and they began to evolve. This was undoubtedly a gluttonous feast for them. The artifact locked the basic attributes of their digitalized bodies so that there would not be any negative changes. However, all beneficial enhancements that increased their abilities could change the player's body attribute. For example, after the players were killed, their attributes would not drop after they were resurrected. However, the enhancement of their attributes every time they leveled up could be accepted by the artifact. This was all thanks to the artifact system that Lil Bailey had set up to nurture the players. It could filter out all negative enhancements. Under the protection of the artifact, the Asia server players were addicted to eating and they began to counterattack. After catching a zombie, they would use the tentacles on their backs to pierce into the body of the zombie to consume its flesh and blood as well as the dark zombie virus. The zombies that were caught were not afraid at all. They grabbed the tentacles and gnawed on them. There was no need to talk nonsense, they just needed to eat and be done with it. The zombies were not afraid of eating each other at all. Therefore, whenever the Asia server players encountered zombies, it was a competition to see who ate faster. The first to finish eating the other party would be the winner. Lu Wu was dumbfounded by the scene. They were all King annihilated, they knew how to play. The only ones who could remain calm at this moment were Lu Wu and Yuan Fong. Lu Wu had the protection of the Emperor Aura and was at the peak of the Emperor realm. The zombies could not get close to him. Yuan Fong was even calmer. He put his palms together and almost said to the zombies nearby, "I'm very tasty. This little monk is very tasty, please help yourselves, corpse masters." Under such crazy attacks, the players were dying in large numbers and the zombies were dying 5 times faster than the players. However, both sides did not care about this anymore. Today, if we don't get annihilated, then you will. Whoever runs away is King coward. At this moment, a healer player who had both of her arms bitten off was kicking her legs and shouting angrily. Apart from this player, almost all the players had the same mentality at this moment. Usually, when the players put on such a fearless and desperate attitude, the enemy forces would definitely be afraid of them. This was because they did not have the ability to resurrect. If they died, they would really die and the warriors that they lost would not be replaced. Therefore, to many forces, fighting the crazy players with their lives was not a wise choice. However, the zombies were different. They were not afraid at all. At this moment, a zombie suddenly opened its bloody mouth and let out a roar. Whoever runs away is a coward. As a life form that had evolved and gained intelligence, it was not that they could not think, it was just that they did not want to think. When they encountered food, they would enter a state of insanity. This was because eating was always more important than anything else. However, at this moment, when the Zombie King heard the player's question, it immediately roared in excitement. "Come on, whoever runs away is a coward. Eat, whoever runs away is a coward. Come on, eat." Relying on the translation ability of the artifact, the two sides began to exchange vicious words while beating and gnawing on each other. Lu Wu could not help but cover his face at such a lame scene. This was the first time he had encountered such a reckless force since he started his conquest in the foreign lands. Their ferocity was not any weaker than the players. However, the players were so pretentious because they had the confidence. Since they could resurrect anyway, they could just start all over again in 3 hours. As for the zombies, they were so wild, it was really because of their courage. Chapter 774. The battle with the Hades Legion made the style of the war look very silly. However, the players and the zombies were already at each other's throats and couldn't stop. Such a crazy way of fighting was actually very cruel and bloody, but the players were already used to it. At this moment, they had already shouted the slogan, "Whoever runs is a coward," so there was no way they would back down. They fought continuously for 10 days, resurrecting within 3 hours of each death and continuing to fight. This battle was not a competition of strength, but a competition of each other's strengths. The players and the Nether Funeral Army assumed the stance of fighting until the other side was exterminated. In fact, if the zombies thought about it for a while, they would realize that something was wrong and then discover the players' resurrection ability. However, the Hades Legion was the first force that didn't care about the players' resurrection characteristic. They didn't even care if they got nutrition after devouring the players. They enjoyed the feeling of eating and didn't care about anything else, including their own lives. The reason why the Hades Legion wasn't destroyed was because of their powerful virus infection ability. Every time they invaded another world, they could convert some of the lives in that world into zombies and make them new members of the Legion. However, the players were different. They wouldn't be infected and wouldn't really die. Even if it was a temporary infection, after dying and entering the artifact space, the harmful substances, viruses, in the data would be removed, and they would return to their original state without any negative effects. Therefore, the war between the zombies and the players had, in fact, doomed the Hades Legion from the very beginning. Although they were crazier than the players were crazy because they had the confidence, while the Hades Legion didn't have the cheats of the players. Therefore, if the war continued, the players would definitely be the final winner. However, after fighting for half a month, Lu Wu chose to leave. As the players' resurrection gradually couldn't keep up with the speed of their deaths, they were eventually devoured. Therefore, he chose to leave temporarily and wait for all the players to resurrect before entering the war again. In fact, with the current strength of the players' souls, they could choose to resurrect directly and they could completely withstand it. However, if they did so, they would have to spend some soul power to speed up the nourishment of the players' souls, which would consume a lot of soul power. After all, there were 2 million players, and all of them had the souls of the gods. Therefore, to save money, Lu Wu chose to leave temporarily, thinking that 3 hours wouldn't make much of a difference. Once all the players' souls were restored, he would once again lead the player army into the Dark Funeral Legion's world. When the zombies saw the players again, they weren't surprised at all. They didn't even think about why. Instead, he chose to come again and prepare to eat. After half a month of continuous battles, the players were convinced by the zombies that only knew how to eat brainlessly. But it was impossible for him to admit defeat. He just had to fight back and be done with it. Go on, be pretentious, be unrestrained, be happy. With the arrival of the Dark Funeral Army, the Great War of Boorish Men began once again. The skills that the players had honed in the Outer Realms were no longer in use at this moment. Instead, they rushed forward and grabbed the zombies that were approaching them, then ruthlessly attacked them. It was the same for zombies. No matter how you hit me, I'll admit defeat if I defend for even a moment. The players enjoyed the joy of earning soul coins every time they killed zombies. Zombies, on the other hand, enjoyed the joy of swallowing food into their stomach. Everyone took what they needed. Although the war was cruel, they were happy. This was also the first time the zombies had encountered such a considerate enemy force. In the past, when they fought in the Outer Realms, they had to face endless defense. If they couldn't break through the layers of defense, they wouldn't be able to touch the lives in that world to eat. But the players' fighting style was different. They weren't afraid of the viruses that they carried, didn't care about their bites, and didn't have any defensive measures, allowing them to eat to their heart's content. The zombies could be said to have fallen in love with this alien race. The players also loved the zombies. After so many years of fighting, it was the first time they encountered a force that didn't defend and allowed them to harvest soul coins. In the days that followed, the players would be annihilated every once in a while. Then, they would come back again after being resurrected. The zombies of the Dark Funeral Legion were already used to the players' appearance. In short, they didn't say anything when they saw them. Even when Lu Wu wanted to help, he was stopped by the players. This was because the Dark Funeral Legion didn't have a great Emperor Realm powerhouse who could fight with Lu Wu. According to the players, if the other party didn't send out a super powerhouse, they wouldn't send out a big meat shield either. They would just live happily like this. Lu Wu seriously suspected that the players were addicted to collecting soul coins and didn't want a share. After all, if he fought, the soul coins produced by the zombies he killed wouldn't be shared with them. However, Lu Wu didn't care about the players' suggestion. After all, when the players killed the zombies, he could also draw soul coins, so it was good to watch the battle. In such a war, the players' strength increased day by day, and the highest level had already exceeded level 1000. But even so, the Dark Funeral Legion didn't seem to be overthrown. This was because the number of zombies in this legion was extremely large. Lu Wu had examined this world and estimated that there were about 10.5 billion of them. This was just the beginning of the war, and it was far from over. In the days that followed, the same thing happened again and again. In some areas, the two sides even reached a tacit understanding. Every time the zombies finished eating the players and saw Lu Wu leaving alone, they didn't choose to chase or stop him. This was because they knew that this powerhouse would come again with new delicious food. After fighting each other for a few years, the zombies and Lu Wu had formed a tacit understanding that didn't need to be said. Now, even if a war broke out, they wouldn't attack Lu Wu anymore. They knew that he was purely a spectator, so they could just ignore him. There was another person who received the same treatment as Lu Wu, and that was Yuan Fang. After a long period of contact, the zombies knew that this guy had an invincible defense and couldn't be eaten at all. They were crazy, but they weren't stupid. Moreover, they were obsessed with eating, so they naturally had no interest in creatures that they couldn't eat. So in the days that followed, the big meat shield and the small meat shield would always stare at each other in boredom. Because no one was playing with them. From Yuan Fang's eyes, Lu Wu saw helplessness, loneliness, sadness, and other negative emotions. But from Lu Wu's eyes, Yuan Fang saw happiness. The way Lu Wu became stronger was that the stronger the players were, the stronger he would be. Even though he had reached a bottleneck, the Emperor energy could still solidify along with the player's strength. But Yuan Fang was different. He had to be beaten in order to become stronger. So Lu Wu was constantly becoming stronger. After Yuan Fang was despised by the zombies, he really fell into an awkward situation where he couldn't improve his power. The lonely little baldy, Yuan Fang, tried to rush into the battle area several times, taking advantage of the chaos to take some damage, which was to be beaten. But in the end, he was despised by both the players and the zombies at the same time. Then, he returned to Lu Wu's side dejectedly. He was so sad that he went bald. Chapter 775. In the past, Lu Wu had to spend a long time to conquer the world during every invasion war in the extraterrestrial world. War was not just a simple fight. After recognizing the disparity in strength, the weaker party would inevitably choose to defend instead of foolishly continuing to fight the other party head-on. Hence, the previous expeditions in the foreign lands would usually take a long time. Could be a few years or a few decades. However, this war was different. The zombies were not afraid of death at all. They were endlessly sending themselves to death. The players were killing happily, and the zombies were eating happily too. Hence, the expeditions in the foreign lands progressed very quickly. After 9 months, the players had slaughtered nearly half of the zombies. However, it did not matter to the zombies. As long as they could eat, they could continue. As for the deaths of their clansmen, they did not care at all. This was very similar to the players in the past. The death of their teammates was not the main point. The key was to kill the monsters and obtain soul coins. They could even stab their teammates at critical moments for soul coins. It was the same for the zombies. Eating was the most important thing to them. They did not care about the deaths of their clansmen at all. They could even kill their clansmen for food at critical moments. The Dark Funeral Legion was formed by creatures from different worlds. Their clansmen were dispensable to them. In such a war, both sides had fought to a tacit understanding and sympathized with each other. However, it was impossible to stop the war. Even if the players agreed, the zombies would not. If we stop the war, what are we going to eat? This was the only thought that the zombies had. The players actually understood this logic, because they had experienced the same choice. When the Sea King chose to join Bakey, why did they reject him? At the end of the day, they had the same thought as the zombies. If the Sea Leeks joined Bakey, they would not have leeks anymore. What about the soul coins? There were too many similarities between the players and the zombies. Hence, they chose to continue the war against the zombies. This was what the zombies wanted, and it was also what the players wanted. During the continuous expeditions, the growth of the players was tremendous. All the zombies in the world had become tonics for them to become stronger. Among them, the life form of the Asia server players had been sublimated. The power of the gene lock had been developed to the 5th stage. They had become a very unique life form. The gene power that had been abandoned was used again and became their main combat ability. For example, body regeneration, telekinesis, and other abilities. These abilities were abandoned by the players of the Asia server after they entered the Outland due to the lack of a proper development system. In the end, they still chose to follow a similar cultivation and growth system as the local and European servers. Most importantly, they could directly purchase laws and carry out a perfect cultivation system for growth. This was far easier than exploring the growth model of the gene lock themselves. However, the genetic growth cultivation system that was abandoned by the Asia server players had returned after the war with the Dark Funeral Legion. As they continued to consume the virus, their gene locks broke through again and again. Now, they had the power of a god body. It could be said that the zombies had allowed the Asia server players to return to the path of growth that they were familiar with. The players had gained far more from the war against the Dark Funeral Legion. The increase in level could bring about an increase in physical strength, and the income of soul coins could make the players collectively rich. The war between the players and the Dark Funeral Legion was undoubtedly a virtuous cycle that allowed their strength to grow steadily. But happy times can't last forever. Halfway through the 2nd year of the war, the number of zombies had obviously declined. Usually, when the players arrived, the zombies would swarm over and surround them. But now, the number of zombies was far less than before. This made the players realize one thing: the Dark Funeral Legion was not far from destruction. At this moment, the players' enthusiasm for the war had faded, and they even had the urge to leave. The zombies were very cruel. They constantly consumed other lives in the Outland and infected a large area with the virus. They could be said to be an extremely evil force in the Outland. But the players had been fighting in the Outland for so many years, and the way they looked at things was already different from before. Just like the players in the Glittering Jewel world, who questioned the other creatures. Didn't the Holy Spirit clan think that they were cruel to be treated as livestock in captivity? At that time, the concept of good and evil was based on subjective judgment and considerations from one's own point of view. But as they came into contact with more things, the players also grew and understood the principles of survival in the Outland. The simplest point was, did humans not rear cattle and sheep in captivity? Were these livestock born to be eaten by humans? The fact was that humans stood at the top of the food chain and had the ability to choose the lives of other creatures. Therefore, it was natural for them to rear the creatures they needed as food. Who would think that it was wrong to do so? And this answer was reflected in the enormous outer world, and it was the same. The Holy Spirit clan was at the top of the food chain in the Outland. Therefore, they had the ability to choose the lives of creatures weaker than them. In the Outland, it was very childish to say that it was right or wrong. If there were absolutely fair rules, then the concept of right or wrong could be formed. However, there were no fair rules in the Outland. Therefore, before doing anything in the Outland, the first thing to consider wasn't whether it was cruel or immoral. Instead, it was whether one had the ability to bear the consequences of doing it. There was only one criterion to consider: one's own strength. In the beginning, the players might have felt that the zombies' behavior was too cruel and inhumane. However, after experiencing so much, the players knew that it was still the law of the jungle. This was the only truth in the development of different races. Therefore, the Dark Funeral Legion's invasion of other worlds and devouring lives couldn't be judged by right or wrong. They weren't the Outlands police. Although they could use their strength to destroy this faction without a reason, they didn't have the right to use their own moral standards to judge others. Therefore, the players didn't feel that the zombies were wrong. Instead, they felt that it was normal for them to kill in order to survive in the Outland. On the other hand, weren't they the same? The zombies fought in the Outland to survive and eat. On the other hand, the players fought in the Outland for their people in the origin world. They had different standpoints, but their behavior was very similar. Therefore, the players didn't feel disgusted with the zombies. Instead, they felt like they were on the same side after nearly 2 years of fighting. They were too similar. Even so, the battle had to continue. The zombies didn't want them to stop. According to the Zombie King, hunger was always tormenting us. Dying while devouring is also a kind of release for us. At that moment, we can at least feel temporary happiness. Therefore, the players fulfilled their promise and agreed with the Zombie King. Whoever ran was a coward, until one side was destroyed forever. At the end of the second year, the Dark Funeral Legion couldn't kill the players anymore and forced them to return to the artifact dimension. The end of the war had arrived. At the final moment, there were no tragic shouts or miserable roars. It was still the same as before. In the battle, the zombies even learned to use words to provoke the players. They knew what to say to make the players angry. Therefore, in this final battle, while the two sides fought like boorish men, they also cursed from time to time. Coward, eat your grandpa's kick. Idiot, you talk so much nonsense. Eat it then. Stretch out your hand and I'll eat it all for you. Eat, eat, eat. You only know how to eat. I'll beat you to death if I let you eat. I'll eat you. So what? Eat it if you don't like it. Stretch out your hand, coward. Don't force me to use force. No one could imagine that this was a conversation between two forces that had been fighting for 2 years. In the cruel war, they were actually very happy. However, this war was finally coming to an end. The players didn't decrease, but the zombie population was less than 100 million. This was less than 1% of their original numbers. Even if the remaining zombies attacked together, they wouldn't be a match for the players. However, they were still as duty-bound as before. While cursing, they began to gnaw on the players' bodies. The players did the same. They cursed and hammered the zombies' heads. In the battle, the number of zombies began to drop drastically again. 90 million, 80 million, 70 million, until the last 1 million, which was similar to the players. Looking at the last million zombies that were charging forward fearlessly, the players seemed to see their old selves. It was the same when they were fighting in Bakey. They wouldn't stop until all of them were dead. They would always fight to the last man. It was the same for the zombies. As long as they were alive and had strength, they wouldn't stop. During the battle, the players had actually asked them if they hated the invaders. Although their answers were different, they all had the same meaning. This is such a happy thing. Hate what? Are you thinking of running away? Don't forget that whoever runs away is a coward. Looking at the last million zombies, the players were filled with emotions. They knew that once this battle was over, the Dark Funeral Legion that was once glorious in the Outland would disappear from the historical stage of the Outland expedition. Hence, at this moment, Lu Chai's voice rang in the live chat channel. Brothers, it's time to send these cowards on their way. Let them have a full meal before they die. Give me the healers. Facing the last million zombies, the players gave them a farewell gift. It was the healer players who grew up by cultivating the life precept, the favorite food of the zombies. This was also a way to send them off after the players discussed it. They decided to let the zombies have their last meal before they went on their way. As for what players to eat, The players discussed it and finally decided to let the healer players sacrifice themselves. The healer players strongly opposed this decision and suggested to throw the warrior players because the meat was more chewy. However, this suggestion was quickly rejected by the warrior and mage players because the zombies loved to eat healers the most. They should have a good last meal without any regrets. At this moment, following Lu Chai's voice, the players grabbed the sorrowful healer players on their side and threw them at the zombies that were charging at them. 3 hours later, the final battle came to an end. The zombies fought to the last man, until the entire army was annihilated. None of the zombies chose to escape this world and wander in the outland. Chapter 776. However, the thought of being able to harvest resources made the players feel a little better. For example, every time they went to the Abyss Lake to hunt for the Abyss Beasts, the Marvel clan would always send a few of their clansmen down in advance to scout the lake for their natural enemies, the Starry Sky Beasts. If there were, they would sacrifice the few clansmen and then disperse. Therefore, when they jumped across space again, the players took the initiative and did not waste any time. At this moment, the players missed the Dark Funeral Legion very much. Compared to the zombies, the Marvel clan was simply a bastard. At that moment, Lu Wu and the players' expressions were as follows: F***CK. What kind of crazy race is this? After all, not all clans were like the Dark Funeral Legion who only knew how to eat. Shameful, it was too shameful. The Marvel clan did not want to fight with them at all. What did they mean by preparing for the return of their forces? They were just running away. They were never afraid of the enemy's strength. Even if they were at an absolute disadvantage in battle, the players did not care because fighting was their way of harvesting resources. The war was about to begin. This time, Lu Wu was the first to jump across space. The players' expressions twisted as they looked at the two panic-stricken clansmen who were caught. They knew that the official space leaping dog was burning soul coins every time. Therefore, they only caught 2 Marvel clan members in these few jumps. It was a huge loss no matter how they looked at it. The players' mentality was broken by such a Voldemort clan. At this moment, the players realized something. However, what surprised Lu Wu and the players was that their arrival did not alarm the Marvel clan. The world was still quiet, as if no one cared about their arrival at all. After Lu Wu gave the order, the millions of players dispersed and began to prepare to plunder this world. The Marvel clan must have made sufficient preparations and did not dare to rashly start a war. However, this was how a smart clan should behave when facing an enemy. But soon, the players' mentality was once again broken by the Marvel clan. Then, without waiting for the players to ask, the 2 Marvel clan members told everything they knew without holding anything back. Lu Wu did not want to say anything to the Marvel clan who were so cooperative. Celestial World, Marvel clan, sure enough, the saying was right. When the forest was big, there would be all kinds of birds. Since they were so afraid of death, it was no wonder that they would not invade other worlds. It was because they were afraid. There was no way he could resist. What if he got injured? They looked up to the sky and stared at the players, their faces full of shock. Because the celestial ring world they were in had a lake connected to the abyss, where they could catch abyss beasts to eat and meet all the needs of their body growth. After making the necessary preparations, Lu Wu once again led the players through the space leap, vowing to capture the surprising tribe. Their opponents were too strong. They could only break through their limits and become stronger. Only then would they have the strength to fight. The moment he made his move, all the surprised tribe members below tore through space and fled. However, the Marvel tribe's performance always exceeded their expectations. If not, then he would muster his courage to go down and capture the Abyss Beast. It was the same in the vast and boundless Starry Sky world. It was the first time Lu Wu and the players had encountered such a ridiculous race. The Marvel race was a neutral race that never invaded other worlds. However, this was the first time they had encountered a race that didn't even give them a chance to fight. They had to fight to the death. What appeared in front of Lu Wu and the players was a majestic city by a lake. Looking down from above, they could clearly see the people walking around in the city. What's going on? You're a void realm, ancient god realm, powerhouse. Why are you being so direct? We didn't say anything and you're ready to betray your people? Betray your clan's resources? Lu Wu once again took out the death list that he had prepared and began to search for the next target. Whether they could defeat them or not was one thing. Whether they would get hurt was one thing. Although they could easily kill the players, the surprising tribe didn't seem to have the same idea. Let's go. Let's go. Every time they arrived, the surprising tribe would escape with the treasures, not giving them any chance to attack. Because they felt that the celestial ring world was too dangerous, there were so many terrifying creatures. However, the wait lasted for 3 days. The players were dumbfounded, and Lu Wu felt helpless. After doing all this, they followed Lu Wu through the realm barrier and arrived in the starry sky. These words were translated by the artifact, and the players were stunned. Lu Wu was speechless. The players were speechless. The angry players increased their search efforts. After finding a new clan, Lu Wu once again led the players across the space and landed above the area where the surprising tribe was. At this moment, Lu Wu and the players were dumbfounded. However, they were not upset about being caught, but they were upset that they didn't express their thoughts first and let their companions beat them to it. It seems like they're not coming? At this moment, the players' minds exploded. As they looked at each other, the players' expressions were indifferent, and they were ready for battle. Because from the way the surprising tribe tore through the space, the players could be sure that they were very powerful. Before the players left, they set up a stone tablet in the center of this world. Completely self-sufficient, although the surprising tribe communicated with the forces of the starry sky, they never invaded other worlds. The war with the Death Legion lasted for 2 years, and with the extinction of the zombies, the war came to an end. I'm also willing to provide everything. Do you need starry sky slaves? I can do it, don't kill me. At this moment, another surprising tribe member said with a chagrined expression. It wasn't that they didn't have the power to fight them. In fact, according to the information they received, the surprising tribe was even stronger than them at this stage. At this moment, they didn't fight them directly. They must have gone to call for help. To the players, this was a wise choice, and they didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Some of the surprising tribe members chose to escape to the starry sky, abandoning their homes. They must have gone to call for help. Everyone, get ready! Even when their own brother found a treasure in the starry sky and hid it somewhere, they didn't hesitate to sell it out, as if they were afraid of being killed. The tablet described the war between them as invaders and the Death Legion, as a way to remember their former enemy. However, what interested Lu Wu the most was that this clan could produce a very precious resource called the Star Core. To Lu Wu, this resource was a precious item that could be converted into soul power. They waited and waited until the sky turned dark, but the surprising tribe members still hadn't arrived. Therefore, the players were more or less nervous, knowing that they were going to be beaten up soon. They were too realistic. After opening the analysis, the players discovered that the strength of these 2 surprising tribe members had reached the Void Realm, Ancient God Realm. They were 2 F*King weak. F*CK. Can't they just fight properly? Are they crazy? Sometimes, a godly realm player could chase down 10 ancient god realm, void realm, surprising tribe members traversing through space. Even so, the players didn't give up. They had never failed in a battle, and they would never fail here. However, their behavior made the players facepalm. However, what Lu Wu and the players didn't expect was that the surprising tribe members in the city suddenly tore through space and disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, what they didn't expect was that the moment they appeared through space, the surprising tribe members below them tore through space and left without hesitation. At this moment, a surprising tribe member who was restrained by the Emperor's aura suddenly shouted, "I surrender. I can provide all the relevant information about the surprising tribe. I also know where the star core of the surprising tribe is located. I'm willing to provide the coordinates to you, great warrior of the starry sky. They still had 8,000 years, so they couldn't stop fighting. While reading, Lu Wu quickly found a new enemy. The entire tribe lived in harmony and was very united and friendly. Their strength was also very strong. Although they didn't become an overlord like the Heavenly Armament Legion, they weren't much weaker. Therefore, this time, Lu Wu decided to go to the Celestial Ring World to see if they could win. His real goal was to plunder a batch of star cores. If they united, they could easily destroy them, but they liked to surrender. They were too King weak. Their appearance immediately alarmed the surprising tribe members in the city. They are too weak. No, King officials jump again. This time, we must catch them. The reason for the sudden arrival of the Outland forces was obvious. They were also a tribe that had contact with the Outland forces, so they understood this principle. Another brief confrontation. Before the players could attack, the surprising tribe members tore through space and disappeared again. This was the first time Lu Wu and the players had suffered a loss since the battle in the Outland. After making the decision, Lu Wu led the players across space and came to a world that was about 1/10 of the size of the three realms. According to the information provided by the Holy Spirit clan, the surprising tribe was a very special tribe. The world they lived in was even more special. There was no ruler of the upper and lower levels of space, and this tribe could directly absorb the spiritual energy from the Outland. This explanation was very reasonable, and most of the players agreed with this concept. However, the way some of the Outland tribes thought was obviously not something Lu Wu and the players could guess. After a while, Lu Wu, who had found a surprising tribe, tore through space and led the players toward that area. Thinking of this, Lu Wu immediately activated the artifact and began searching for the surprising tribe by burning soul coins. At this moment, a player once again gave an explanation on the forum. Although it was a small world, the surprising tribe could directly absorb the spiritual energy from the Outland. Therefore, their strength was much stronger than the forces in the small world. Lu Wu and the players became cautious and prepared for battle. What a harmonious and loving tribe. Lu Wu was very interested in this. However, under the entanglement of Lu Wu's emperor energy, two of the surprising tribe members were still caught and could not escape through space. In just a few seconds, the city was empty. Subsequently, the players opened a post on the forum and edited all the coordinates given by the two surprising tribe members into text guides and posted them on the forum for other players to read. Lu Wu, on the other hand, let the players form their own teams and disperse to search for treasures according to the coordinates provided by the surprising tribe members. Seeing this scene, the players realized that something was wrong. It's going to be a tough battle. Let's buy more potions in the shop first. What was a tribe? A tribe was used to probe for danger. What did this mean? Apart from Lu Wu, no one else could fight against any of them. What kind of idiotic tribe is this? Why are they so good at escaping? How can they be happy? The players discussed this and gave a relatively reasonable explanation. This was the first time they had suffered a loss since the battle in the Outland. Chapter 777. After a brief moment of silence, Lu Wu and the players quickly left the world. The star core was such a precious resource, and the Marvel race was so cautious that it would be effortless for them to take over this place. Could it be that no outer realm forces had come to plunder like them? The structure of this world was unique. It was connected to the abyss of the outer realm. According to the information that Lu Wu had received, this lake was the hunting area of the surprising tribe. He even speculated that the planet core of the amazing race might have been obtained from this lake. Those gigantic space beasts were generally in the sub-emperor realm, and some were even in the emperor realm. So why did such a hidden Marvel race only leave this world when we arrived? Did no extraterrestrial forces want to invade the celestial ring world and plunder its nucleus? The lake water here was a faint dark red, and a huge figure could be vaguely seen floating slowly below. However, due to the color of the lake water, the players could not see clearly what kind of creature it was. However, when the players entered Celestial World, the surprise clan seemed to have been prepared. They collectively broke through the realm barrier on the horizon and silently went to the outer space. They did not communicate with the players along the way. However, Lu Wu was curious about where the star core, an important resource of this world, came from. What AF** King weird race? Through the analysis, Lu Wu and the players were shocked to discover that the Abyss Beasts, the food of the Amazing Clan, were at least at the Void Realm, which was also known as the Ancient God Realm by the players. After a brief silence, the players returned to Celestial World. Therefore, it wasn't that no extraterritorial forces had invaded this world before. It was just that they were helpless against the mysterious race. Realizing this, the players were in a terrible mood. During this period, the Shockwave tribe displayed the essence of hiding to the fullest. They wouldn't make any reckless moves, such as not showing their heads if they weren't discovered by the players. If they were discovered, they would flee regardless of whether they could defeat the players. Now, the only way to make up for the loss was to find the place where the Star Core resources were produced and then excavate a batch of resources back. At this time, Lu Wu used the artifact to explore the Celestial Ring world, but he could not detect any signs of life. Lu Wu and the players had no way of knowing the answer to this question. The most important thing now was to search for resources. However, it was impossible for them to stop just like that. However, faced with the players' endless search, the astonished tribesmen felt extremely uneasy. At this moment, they turned their eyes to the Abyss Lake in the center of Celestial World. So, they did something that left the players dumbfounded. They simply abandoned their homes and headed to outer space. Seeing this scene, the players were stunned. They had actually arrived in the outer realm once again. At this moment, what they saw were countless shattered rocks, as well as massive creatures roaming through the starry sky. Even the smallest creature here was several thousand meters long, and the largest one-horned beast was comparable to a small world. So the players chased, the surprised clansmen ran, and began to repeatedly pass through the realm barrier. In fact, Lu Wu had another question in mind. So, how did the Marvels come to possess Star Core resources? At this moment, they saw the players crossing the realm barrier to leave. After a brief silence, they silently crossed the realm barrier and returned to Celestial World under the eyes of the players. Filled with curiosity, Lu Wu brought the players to the huge lake area. However, they had no choice. Staying in this world would only be a waste of time, and they wouldn't be able to obtain anything. They could only choose to leave. So in the end, the players stopped. In the face of such a cowardly Marvels, the players were completely exasperated. Because the strength of the players was generally at the God Realm at this stage, there was still a gap between their strength and the Marvels. So, they couldn't catch up with the Marvels in terms of speed, and the chase was extremely difficult. Moreover, Lu Wu didn't purchase information about the Abyss Lake from the Information Trading Center, so he was extremely curious about this place. Finally, under the leadership of Lu Wu, the players crossed the realm barrier and left Celestial World. In general, after deducting a small number of seized treasures, they still suffered a loss. Fortunately, they were very close to the shore, and they soon landed on the shore without being surrounded by the starry sky beasts. I can't afford to mess with them. I can't afford to mess with them. I'm leaving. At this moment, when he thought of the Marvels discovering their invasion, they decisively tore the space apart. They must have experienced being invaded many times, and they were already familiar with it. At that time, he once thought, did no other forces invade Celestial World to plunder the resources of the Marvels? The strongest ability of the players was resurrection, but in the face of the Marvels' tactics, the resurrection ability was useless. After repeating this several times, the players' mentality was once again destroyed by the marvels. They all understood the principle of, an innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. The marvels had already escaped, and there were no resources to plunder in this world. The only place that might have resources was in the Abyss Lake. The battle power was too strong, and they were no match for it. For the first time, Lu Wu and the players, who had the battle artifact, felt helpless. Now, looking at the marvel's skillful method of crossing the realm barrier, they were obviously experienced. After so many years of battle, this was the first time they suffered a loss, and the players remembered this deeply. What the hell is this place? At this time, Lu Wu and the players realized one thing: they seemed to have suffered a loss this time. I feel like I've been insulted. They were very familiar with this group of creatures. It was the marvels. This was the first time they encountered an opponent that they were helpless against. Lu Wu used the artifact to search the world, but he didn't find the resource point of the star core, not even ordinary spiritual materials. They had already won this battle before it even started, but it was an extremely unpleasant victory. It should be said that they had never won such a humiliating victory before. When they saw the scene inside, Lu Wu and the players were stunned. At this time, Lu Wu and the players couldn't imagine where the cowardly marvels got the courage to hunt the Abyss Beast. Did they want to die? This was also what puzzled the players. But they didn't admit defeat, they just remembered this grudge, and they would definitely come back in the future when they were strong enough. The angry players immediately crossed the realm barrier, and the marvels returned to the celestial ring world. Is this a F***king provocation? When the time comes, I'll smash the heads of the marvels and let you continue hiding. Seeing this scene, Lu Wu had already gotten the answer to his previous doubts. Hiding, they were really F***king hiding. Now the answer was obvious. The previous marvels were probably like the players. They were driven mad by the marvels, and in the end, they would return in vain. The vast starry sky suddenly appeared in front of them. The behavior of the marvels taught the players a good lesson about the meaning of hiding to live a long life. Due to the special nature of this world, it was filled with the spiritual energy of the outer realm, so other than the marvels, no creatures could survive here for long. But while searching for resources, Lu Wu found the answer. For the powerful marvels, who were especially good at hiding, they had indeed reached a point where they couldn't do anything. Therefore, Lu Wu led the players into the depths of the Abyss Lake. Lu Wu and the players were dumbfounded. During the time they came into contact with the outer realm, they had already understood the rules of survival in the outer realm. Precious resources were never reserved for the fated, but for the strong. Did they know that we would retreat? Were they waiting? Thus, an endless game of hide-and-seek began in the celestial ring world, and the marvels didn't let the players down. They really accompanied them in hiding. If you all ran away, we'll just accept it. At this point, the players were speechless. At this moment, countless starry sky beasts and abyss beasts discovered the players, and suddenly attacked in a mighty manner. But what made the players dumbfounded was that a group of creatures was looking at them from afar. We haven't even left yet, and you're turning back in front of us? Who are you looking down on? The marvels. Endless supply, continuous combat, unafraid of death, etc. These characteristics don't work on us, because we won't play with you. The marvels were waiting outside the celestial ring world just now because they guessed that the players would choose to leave, so they were already prepared to return. They didn't even make eye contact, they just ran away silently. Because there were no resources in this world at all. Fu**k. Go back, I'm so angry. Chapter 778. In the end, Lu Wu and the players chose to leave Celestial World. Because at this stage, only Lu Wu had the ability to capture the Qi clan, and the players were generally weaker than the Qi clan. It would take too much time for Lu Wu to capture them alone, so the players had to give up for the time being. But they would remember this grudge. After leaving Celestial World, Lu Wu took out the death list, and began to look for the next invasion target. But at this moment, a space vortex appeared not far from Celestial World, and then densely packed creatures poured out from it. These creatures looked ferocious, and their shapes were different. The thick outer shell reflected a dark metallic luster, and each limb was like a sharp blade, flashing a cold light. Lu Wu roughly scanned with the artifact and found that there were 52,315 species in this force, and there were more different species pouring out from the space vortex. Lu Wu, who was puzzled, immediately locked on one of the creatures with the artifact and opened the analysis function. Soon, the feedback appeared. Void Insect Clan. Creature details. A terrifying creature with extremely strong survival ability. It is composed of 5 major branches, namely the insect brain with the highest power in the clan, the insect nest, mother insect, queen insect, the warrior, insect king, destroyer, etc., the parasite, planet parasite, the clan guardian. A total of 5 major branch systems with a total of 14. 98 million species spread in every corner of the extraterrestrial world. It is one of the most terrifying predator forces in the extraterrestrial world. Seeing the analysis feedback, Lu Wu once again turned his head to look at the space vortex. At this time, the insect army had formed into a mighty and huge army. All the warriors were like cold killing machines, quietly lurking in the dim starry sky without receiving orders. At this moment, 3 extremely large, wasp-like creatures emerged from the space vortex. The moment they appeared, all the insectoid warriors seemed to have received an order. They swarmed to the outside of Celestial World, then broke through the realm barrier and entered. The 3 insect clan warriors that had just appeared stood outside of Celestial World, and then their backs split open. Streams of black light overflowed from the inside and covered the surface of Celestial World. From the perspective of Lu Wu and the players, the black energy slowly covered Celestial World at a speed visible to the naked eye. Void Barrier. Skill details. Whenever the insect clan invades a world, the guardian of the clan will condense a layer of void barrier on the surface of that world to ensure that no creature can escape from the invaded planet. Lu Wu and the players were dumbfounded when they saw the information on the analysis menu. What was professional? This was F*King Professional. He had cut off all paths of retreat for them. This step of the void insect race directly killed the surprising race's method of repeatedly jumping horizontally and shuttling back and forth across the dimensional barrier to escape. At this moment, Lu Wu and the players were extremely curious. They wanted to know how the Marvel clan would respond to the invasion of such professional void zergs. In fact, Lu Wu and the players had heard about the Void Worm clan many times when they were in the Glittering World. The insectoid forces were not a single force, but a combination of countless powerful void insectoid forces. The entire insectoid social hierarchy was very strict. The insectoid cerebrum could control the lives of all insectoid soldiers in the race, and had extremely high intelligence. At the peak of this race, the strongest overmind insect, Blade, once ruled over all the insects and challenged the Holy Spirit King. According to the description of the information obtained by Lu Wu, the scope of that battle was very wide. A large number of alien races that surrendered to the Holy Spirit King were destroyed, and even the Holy Spirit King suffered heavy losses. But in the end, the Holy Spirit King was still stronger and killed the ruler of the insect clan, Blade. In the end, the insect clan once again turned into a pile of loose sand, forming countless insect swarms and losing their original threat. Even so, the insect clan was still recognized as one of the overlord forces in the alien world. If all the insect swarms could unite, it would be a huge force that could shake any force. At this moment, seeing the insect clan invading the celestial world, the players' curiosity was aroused. They immediately urged Lu Wu to quickly use the artifact to check the internal situation of the celestial world. Lu Wu did not hesitate and immediately activated the artifact's detection function. Although the insect clan guardian blocked the celestial world, the artifact in a different plane was not hindered and easily penetrated this isolation barrier. At this moment, Lu Wu put the detected scene on the forum in the form of a live broadcast. Suddenly, a large number of players poured into the live broadcast room, ready to watch the show. They were happy to see the surprising race getting beaten up. At this time, inside the celestial world, the mighty insect warriors arrived. The first to attack was the parasite among the insect clan. Their bodies were bloated, like a beating heart, rising and falling every moment. The first target of the parasite's attack was not the surprising race, but the world itself. As the body of the insect clan parasite fell to the ground, its body suddenly bloomed like a flower petal. Countless tentacles grew from the inside, pierced the ground, and began to absorb the energy of the world's core. Suddenly, a steady stream of energy was extracted from the ground. The surrounding plants quickly withered, and a layer of blood-colored moss spread under the body of the insect clan parasite. This was one of the reasons why the insect clan could fight for a long time in the alien world. The parasite was equivalent to a miniaturized version of the ruler of the lower classes in the world. It had the powerful ability to convert energy. The difference was that they converted the energy of the Earth's core into the energy needed by the insect clan, instead of converting the energy of the alien world. As the blood-colored moss continued to spread, the area rapidly expanded and occupied an area of 800,000 square kilometers in a short time. The insect clan's supply base was directly established in the celestial world. While the parasites were establishing the supply base, all the insect warriors in the sky hovered in the air, guarding the parasites and preventing them from being attacked by the local forces. When the blood-colored moss spread to 2 million square kilometers, the insect clan in the sky began to attack this world. The insect warriors in the sky were divided into 32 teams at this time in an orderly manner. According to the coordinates of the surprising race transmitted by the scouting unit, the tiny insects, they headed toward various areas of this world. Seeing such a professional invasion method, Lu Wu and the players were ashamed. This was too professional. Scouting the surprising race, establishing the supply base, protecting the base, and so on. All orders were executed at the same time, without the slightest waste of time. At this moment, Lu Wu and the players all felt that the surprising race, who were especially good at hiding, was doomed this time. Because the Void Insect Clan's invasion method was too proficient, they were obviously veterans. If the surprising race was a professional escape, then the Void Insect Clan was a professional invasion. One planned the escape route when it was invaded, and the other prepared in advance to cut off all escape routes. With the movement of the Insect Clan army, the surprising race soon discovered the invasion of the Void Insect Clan. At this moment, the surprising race did not hesitate to tear the space and escape. Just like when Lu Wu led the players to invade, they moved extremely quickly. But the Void Insect Clan did not chase. The communication soldier in the team, the tiny insects, first came to the area where the surprising race tore the space and explored the coordinates of the area where the surprising race was going to escape to, then conveyed the information to the Insect Clan army that was closer to that area. And this Insect Clan army once again headed toward the stronghold of the surprising race that was closer. They had no intention of chasing across the space. Looking at the invasion battle inside the celestial world, Lu Wu was amazed by the means of the Void Insect Clan. It could be seen that the Void Insect Clan came prepared and did not worry about the escape ability of the surprising race at all. In fact, even if the surprising race tore the space to escape again and again, the Void Insect Clan army was as still as a mountain. They did not tear the space to chase after the surprising race. 32 army forces formed a huge encirclement, standing in various areas of the celestial world, and went back and forth to capture the surprising race that was closer. This method really had an excellent effect. Every time the space was torn, the surprising race would consume the spiritual energy in their body, but the Void Insect Clan army's consumption was minimal. Their strong physical body could allow them to cross the void, let alone simply floating in the air in this world. Seeing this scene, the players in the live broadcast were also shocked by the means of the Void Insect Clan. I can see that the Void Insect Clan is going to exhaust the surprising race to death? That's too professional. Void Insect Clan, you can run all you want, I won't chase after you. If you don't die from exhaustion, consider it our loss. Laughing emoji. This time, the surprising race has met their nemesis. It's really tragic. If this continues, they will definitely die. I heard others talk about the Void Insect Clan in the Glittering World. It seems that this clan never accepts any form of surrender. The surprising race is finished. The players were discussing it on the forum. Judging from the current situation, the players had basically labeled the surprising tribe as annihilated. The rhythm of this battle had been completely controlled by the Void Insect Clan. However, their means were not limited to this. As the blood-colored moss created by the parasite continued to spread outward, it began to spray out clouds of blood-colored mist. The mist would soon dissipate in the air. However, Lu Wu found that as the red mist dissipated, the space of this world was actually thickening a little. In other words, the spiritual energy needed by the surprising race to tear the space would also increase. In a short period of time, this world had become the home field of the Void Insect Clan, and the surprising race had no advantage. More and more red mist integrated into this world, and the surprising race soon discovered the abnormality. The difficulty and consumption of tearing the space were increasing, and at this moment, they chose to flee to the outskirts in fear. However, this time they were not so lucky. No matter how they tore the space barrier of the outskirts, they could not tear a crack in the boundary barrier. This was because each Bug Clan Guardian had the strength of an Emperor realm, and it was not something that the surprising race could shake in a short period of time. Moreover, the insectoids did not give them a chance to attack the barrier at all. An insectoid army quickly tore through space and rushed over, driving these surprising tribe members who wanted to escape to the outer realm back into the world, causing them to continue their endless escape. If this continued, the surprising race would sooner or later consume all the spiritual energy in their bodies, and eventually become turtles in a jar. At least, that was what Lu Wu and the players who were watching the battle thought. However, at this moment, a turn of events occurred. The surprising race, who had nowhere to run, came to the Abyss Lake and plunged into it. At this moment, the Void Insect Clan army also swarmed in. The perspective of the live broadcast also entered the Abyss world at this time. When they saw the new live broadcast, Lu Wu and the players were stunned. The bodies of the surprising race in the Abyss world expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye, and in the blink of an eye, they turned into giants that were 10,000 meters tall. At this moment, their strength also increased rapidly, and one by one, they broke through to the Emperor realm, and some even broke through to the Emperor realm. Lu Wu was speechless. The players were speechless. The dumbfounded Lu Wu immediately turned on his analysis ability and began to search for information about the surprising race. At this moment, the details panel of the surprising race changed. Abyss Titan, surprising race. Creature information, one of the Overlord-level creatures of the Abyss Starry Sky world. They have a strong creative ability, but they do not like the environment of the Abyss world. However, after leaving the Abyss world, due to the influence of the external environment, their strength will be greatly weakened, and they will be less than 10% of their original strength. At the same time, after the Abyss Titan dies in the outside world, it cannot be resurrected by its clansmen. Looking at the new analysis information, Lu Wu and the players understood one thing. This surprising race was not only hiding, but also pretending to be weak. Society. We can't afford to offend them. Chapter 779. Seeing this scene, Lu Wu and the players were dumbfounded. In their impression, the Marvel clan was a very cowardly demon clan. They had great power, but they did not know how to fight or resist. Even an ordinary God Realm player could chase a group of ancient God Realm Marvel clan members around the world. Even if they were caught, the members of this clan would not have any thoughts of resisting and would choose to surrender without hesitation. However, the players did not expect that this clan was not only cowardly, but also pretended to be weak. When Lu Wu and the players explored the Abyss Lake, they actually had doubts, because the creatures inside the Abyss Lake were super fierce beasts that were unbelievably strong. However, according to the Holy Spirit clan's intelligence, the Marvel clan relied on hunting the Abyss beasts in the Abyss Lake for food. This did not seem reliable at all. The Marvel clan did not dare to attack them, so where did they get the courage to hunt the powerful Abyss beasts? At this moment, Lu Wu and the players got the answer. Under the home advantage, the Marvel clan became extremely powerful. With their current strength, apart from the giant beasts of the starry sky, hunting ordinary Abyss beasts was not a problem at all. At this time, the Marvel clan had reached the point of desperation under the oppression of the Void Bug clan. Since there was no way to escape, it was time to lay their cards on the table and stop pretending. All the Marvel clan members turned into Abyss Titans at this moment, facing the Void Bug clan warriors that swarmed into the abyss and killed them with one punch. The players were stunned by their explosive combat power. This was not like the weak Chicken clan that fled with their hands covering their heads. They were displaying the strength that a super overlord should have. Through the artifact, Lu Wu and the players also discovered that above the Abyss Lake, the Bug clan's guardian figure emerged and built a realm barrier above, making the surrounding space extremely solid. The purpose was obvious. The Void Bug clan was ready to close the door and beat the dogs, leaving the Marvel clan no place to retreat. Even if the Marvel clan ran out of the lake, they would not be able to tear the space and escape. Since they could not see the inside of the Abyss Lake, the Bug clan did not know what their own people were going through. Instead, they began to cut off the Marvel clan's retreat and were prepared for the Marvel clan to escape from the lake. However, the fact was that it was impossible to force the Marvel clan out with the home advantage. Lu Wu was sure that the Void insects were going to suffer this time. Just as he had expected, the Void Bug tribe warriors that were pouring into the Abyssal Lake were powerless before the powerful Abyssal Titans, who could wipe them out with a single punch. Even though the Void Bug race had taken all sorts of countermeasures, everything was futile in the face of absolute power. He endured the beating of the surprised tribe members. With the death of a large number of void worms, the giant beasts in the abyss were also alarmed. At this moment, they swarmed over and began to devour the remains of the void insects. They even helped the Abyssal Titans kill the void insects that had entered the abyss world. It could be seen that these giant abyssal beasts were extremely wary of the surprising tribe and did not dare to approach them. Of course, there were exceptions. The gigantic star behemoths didn't care about that. Not only did they approach the shocking humans, but they even dared to eat them right in front of the shocking humans. In short, the giant star beast only had one attitude: it would eat whoever was close to it. At this moment, Lu Wu and the players saw the Abyss Titan's other ability, resurrection. Their resurrection method was different from Lu Wu's use of artifacts to resurrect players. It was a method to reconstruct the bodies of their people. As a few Abyss Titans grabbed at the giant star behemoths that had swallowed their people, the bodies of the giant star behemoths emitted a dark red mist. Under the control of the Abyss Titan, the mist slowly took human form and finally condensed into the appearance of the people that had been swallowed by the giant star behemoths. However, the resurrected surprising tribe members looked extremely weak. Their bodies rippled like the moon in the water, and they could shatter at any time. After Lu Wu examined them, he found that the resurrected surprising tribe members' strength had been weakened by at least 10%. They had become extremely weak and had completely lost their combat power. Even so, such an ability was already very heaven-defying in Lu Wu's eyes. After all, the surprising tribe had not mastered the power of convergence. It was already very powerful to be able to do this with their racial talent. The battle continued. Every time a surprising tribe member died, they would be resurrected on the spot and then protected. At this moment, the surprising tribe members seemed to be united and did not have the cowardly faces that they had in the outside world. Relying on their powerful combat power, the Abyss Titan continued to kill the Void Bug Tribe warriors. They killed as many as they came. The explosive combat power really shocked all the players in the live broadcast room. The battle lasted for about 2 hours. At this moment, the Bug Tribe Master Bug Cerebrum, in the outside world, had discovered the abnormality inside the lake. It stopped the Void Bug Tribe warriors from continuing to enter the lake. Instead, it sent a team of scouts, tiny bugs, to investigate. Since entering the lake was another world, the Bug Cerebrum, in the dark, could not receive the information sent back by the tiny bugs. All the tiny bugs quickly retreated after entering the lake and then transmitted everything they saw inside the lake to the Bug Cerebrum in the form of images. The insectoid cerebrum held the highest authority in every insectoid swarm, always hiding in the shadows. Even if the insectoid warriors were all wiped out, they would not appear. They had extremely high intelligence and battle analysis abilities, and were born to lead the insectoid race. The reason why the Void Bug Tribe was terrifying was because of the existence of the Bug Cerebrum. After looking at the scene inside the lake sent back by the tiny bugs, the Bug Cerebrum had already found something wrong. The interior of the celestial ring world fell into a brief silence. After a while, the Bug Cerebrum's shrill screech sounded in the celestial ring world. Then, all the remaining Bug Tribe figures floated into the air. They were no longer chasing after the Bug Tribe members. Instead, they launched a carpet search in the celestial ring world. At this time, the Bug Cerebrum's thoughts were exactly the same as Lu Wu's. This battle was definitely a loss. Then, they would look for star core resources and dig some away. Looking at the Void Bug Tribe warriors flying around the world, and even digging 3 feet into the ground in search of star core, Lu Wu and the players couldn't help but laugh, because they had all experienced this step before. It was really uncomfortable when one was defeated, but it was very fun to watch others being defeated. The Void Bug Tribe finally retraced the path that Lu Wu and the players had taken and began to search for resources. Naturally, they found nothing. At this moment, the Bug Cerebrum's screech sounded in the celestial ring world again. Then, all the Bug Tribe parasites put away the blood-colored moss and floated into the air with the Void Bug Tribe army. They chose to evacuate this world, and did not intend to stay here for long. Because, not to mention the precious star core resources, even the most common spiritual materials did not exist, so there was no benefit to be gained from staying here. They came in a mighty manner and retreated with their tails between their legs. In this invasion, the Void Bug Tribe lost a large number of warriors, but they did not gain any benefits. However, such a war was actually not a huge loss for the Void Bug Tribe, because one of the characteristics of the Void Bug Tribe was their extremely strong reproductive ability. As long as there were resources, the mother nest in the tribe could continuously reproduce the major branches of the Void Bug Tribe. Therefore, the death of the tribe warriors was not a big problem for the cold-blooded insects. But since there were no benefits, the Bug Cerebrum would not stay here for long. It decisively tore the realm barrier and left with its army, heading toward the next target world. Seeing all the void bugs disappear into the space vortex, Lu Wu and the players were delighted. If the invasion of the void bugs was successful, and they took away a large number of star core resources, then they would definitely make a move. Why can't we do it but you can? We won't be jealous, right? Since the surprise bug tribe doesn't fight with us, then we will rob you, bug tribe. Although Lu Wu and the players did not say it explicitly, they still understood the principle of the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Unfortunately, the void bug tribe also returned in failure, completely unable to do anything to the surprise bug tribe. At this moment, Lu Wu finally understood why this surprise bug tribe, with important resources, could stay in this celestial world. Absolute Wall was often invaded, but every time, the invading force was fooled by them. If they encountered an extremely powerful invading force like the Void Bug Tribe, the surprise bug tribe would hide and jump over the wall, hammering the invaders. Not only hiding, but also pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. This was really a strange race. Regarding the surprise bug tribe, Lu Wu and the players were convinced. At this moment, Lu Wu also planned to leave with the players. After all, there was no profit to be made in the celestial world, and staying here was a complete waste of time. But at this moment, in the live broadcast transmitted by the artifact, several heads emerged from the Abyss Lake. They began to carefully observe the surroundings, seemingly sensing whether there were any void bug tribe lying in ambush. After some sensing, these few heads dived underwater again, and after a while, a large number of surprise bug tribe members came ashore. At the moment of contact with the outside world, the physical strength of the surprise bug tribe members was suppressed by the laws of the outside world, and they returned to their original state again. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the branch players in the live broadcast room became strange. Stupid official, they came ashore. More importantly, the isolation barrier of the bug tribe guardian has not dissipated, and now they can't tear the space to escape. At this time, a player shouted excitedly in the live channel. Upon hearing this, the players were shocked. Then, a malicious smile appeared on their faces. If it weren't for the player's reminder, Lu Wu wouldn't have noticed this. Now that he noticed it, he burned soul coins without hesitation and began to cover the surface of the Abyss Lake with a layer of isolation barrier. Get ready, we're going. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. With Lu Wu's shout, the artifact's space vibrated, and the players collectively tore the space and jumped to the sky above the Abyss Lake. At this time, the surprise bug tribe members who had just come ashore were still discussing something on the shore. At this moment, densely packed figures appeared in the sky. Without any hesitation, all the mysterious tribe members waved their hands in a practiced manner and began to tear space apart, preparing to escape. However, in order to close the door and beat the dog, the insect cerebrum had already asked the guardians of its race to set up an isolation barrier here. At this time, the barrier had not dispersed, so the space could not be torn apart at all. At this moment, the terrified tribesmen decisively ran towards the deep Abyss Lake, because that was the only place where they could save their lives. However, Lu Wu was prepared this time. He burned his soul coins to set up a barrier above the Abyss Lake. Therefore, the astonished tribesmen could not jump into the water at all. At this moment, the surprised tribesmen were completely dumbfounded. Not only could he not hide anymore, he could not even pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger. Looking at the army of players descending with sinister smiles, all of the surprised tribesmen revealed expressions of fear. In the outside world, they did not have the ability to revive. The reason why they were so cowardly in the outside world was because of a sentence passed down by the ancestors of their clan. The only thing we need to do in the outside world is to stay alive. Everything else can be abandoned. Hence, when faced with a player army that was far weaker than them, the Marvels knelt on the ground in unison. We surrender. I'm willing to be a slave. I can do anything. Sob, 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 I'm so scared, don't kill me. The Marvels, who were beating up the Void Bug tribe a moment ago, instantly returned to their cowardly state. Chapter 780. Lu Wu and the players were speechless as they looked at the amazed tribesmen kneeling on the ground and wiping their tears. Do you have to be so honest? Where's the imposing manner you used to beat up the void insects? The amazed tribesmen instantly switched back to their cowardly form. Lu Wu and the players were caught off guard and could not react in time. Looking at the amazed tribesmen below, Lu Wu was silent for a while. Then, he said, "Tell me, where did you hide the star cores?" As soon as he said this, all the amazed tribesmen waved their hands forward in unison, summoning a circle of black holes. They took out pieces of star cores from their personal space and offered them up without reservation. Looking at the star cores that covered the ground, Lu Wu and the players' eyes widened. They gave them up just like that? Why didn't they take a detour? A symbolic struggle was fine too. Most importantly, it seemed like they could not defeat them at all. That was too much. However, the amazed tribesmen's thoughts were completely different from what the players thought. From their point of view, death in the outside world was real death. Staying alive was the truth. That was what their ancestors said, with confidence. Therefore, in the face of life and resources, the amazed tribesmen handed over all their treasured star cores with tears and snot. They did not dare to hold anything back because they were afraid of death. Faced with such cooperative amazed tribesmen, Lu Wu and the players were a little embarrassed to make a move. After so many years of fighting, it was the first time they had seen such a cooperative race. "Who is your leader?" Thinking of this, Lu Wu asked. He was ready to ask the person in charge. At this moment, the amazed tribesman pointed at a tribesman who was wiping his tears in the crowd. It's not me, it's really not, sob sob." The amazed tribesman was so scared that his face turned pale, as if he was about to be shot. Hearing this, Lu Wu immediately looked at the amazed tribesman and opened the analysis function. Force, amazed tribesman. Creature details. The leader of the amazed tribesmen, one of the 7 kings of the Abyss world, has the strength of the great Emperor realm, strength weakened by 10 times in the outside world, inherited the ultimate rule of devour left behind by the ancestors who challenged the extreme peak. It can absorb the target's cultivation base, divine ability, talent, cultivation technique, and all other abilities to enhance itself until the target dies and dissipates. It can only absorb the abilities of 3 people at most, and the target must be in a near-death state when absorbing. If the absorbed target dies, it can use this extreme Tao law to absorb a new target. Biological characteristics: cowardly, overbearing, brave creature status. Scared, sad, worried. Lu Wu and the players were dumbfounded when they saw the force analysis menu of the Marvel Clan's controller. From the information on the interface, this guy was so strong that it was off the charts. A peak Great Emperor Realm expert was an overlord-level existence in the Outer Realm. Other than the super big shots in the Void Realm, there was practically no one who was a match for them. Furthermore, this person had actually grasped the extreme Tao laws. Not only was he powerful, he was also using a cheat code. If this guy were to attack, it would be a piece of cake for him to wipe them out. Other than Lu Wu, no other player could withstand a casual attack from him. However, looking at Force, who was kneeling on the ground and wiping his tears and snot with an aggrieved expression, Lu Wu and the other players felt like a pig equipped with a full set of top-notch equipment. And he was one of the 7 kings of the Abyss world. Did he have to be so king embarrassing? If your ancestor knew you were like this, he might die of anger. One of the players could not help but say faintly. My ancestor said to let me live, so don't kill me, Force said while sobbing. Lu Wu was speechless. The players were speechless. They wanted to kill him, but could they? Other than Lu Wu, no one had the combat power to break through Force's physical defense. So what the hell was he afraid of? However, Force did not think so at this moment. It was impossible for him not to be afraid. He was so scared that he felt like he was going to die. He was going to die. This was similar to the players in the past. They knew that they could be resurrected, so their hearts were extremely strong. However, this kind of strength depended on resurrection. Without resurrection, they would not be able to challenge existences that were stronger than them. Perhaps they would even be worried when challenging creatures that were weaker than them. In this aspect, the Marvel Clan's personality was infinitely magnified, even more so than the players. The Abyss world was a heavy punch, but the outside world was a yes-man. It was very similar to the behavior of a certain contrarian, who was holding a staff and watching the players in the forum. Therefore, the Marvel clan in the outside world would worry for a long time if their skin was scratched, let alone fighting. After all, if they were injured in the outside world, their bodies would not be able to heal themselves. If they died, they would really die. How could they not be afraid? Hey, how about you give me the ultimate law in your body? Lu Wu said. What he needed the most right now was the ultimate law, but this kind of law could only be encountered by chance. Now that he saw it, he naturally wanted it. Sob, 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 I want to give it to you too, but the ultimate law is connected to my life. If I give it to you, I will die. Why don't you challenge the limit mountain? If you succeed, you can take my ultimate law. Force, who wanted to live, did not mention a word about how Lu Wu knew that he had the ultimate law. He was afraid that he would be beaten up if he knew too much, so he continued to wipe his tears and beg. Lu Wu was speechless. Looking at the extremely embarrassing Force, the players could not help but cover their faces. Among the emperors that they knew, which one of them did not have willpower that matched their realm? Whether it was the 3 emperors of the underworld or the 3 sky emperors of the heavenly realm, even Xiao, who had not reached the emperor realm, had trained his willpower to be as firm as a rock. In comparison, Force had broken the bottom line of the players. Sure enough, in the vast outer space, all kinds of weirdos could exist. This sentence made sense. If Force dared to resist, Lu Wu would find a way to kill him even if he was no match for him, and then take away his ultimate law. However, looking at Force, who was sobbing and wiping his tears, Lu Wu could not bring himself to do it. This is 2F** King cowardly, so cowardly that I almost sympathize with him. This race is really weird, even weirder than the Dark Funeral Legion that we met, Facepalm. D**MN official, just rob them, not their lives this time. Let them live. I re-watched the scene of their heavy punches in the Abyss world. I suspect that you, D**MN official, just broadcast the wrong scene. I'm sure, Facepalm. After taking a deep breath, Lu Wu calmed himself down. He looked at the Force again and said, Force, I can spare your life, although I might not be able to defeat you, but you must tell me where the star core is produced. Lu Wu was very eager for the star core. This was because this precious resource was rare even in the glittering world, and its value was higher than the sacred spirit stone. If it were not for its scarcity, it could completely replace the sacred spirit stone as a hard currency. Lu Wu saw it by chance when he was strolling in the trading center of the glittering world. At that time, he decided to put the Surprise Clan on the death list, and bought relevant information about the Surprise Clan from the Holy Spirit Clan's intelligence center. As the saying goes, a man's wealth is a crime. I'm interested in your resources. However, the process of invading the celestial world was full of ups and downs, and the final result was so dramatic. This was something Lu Wu did not expect. Faced with Lu Wu's question, Force immediately sobbed and said, Star Core. Star Core is a resource in the Abyss world, and it can only be obtained there. I need more star cores, can you give them to me? Lu Wu immediately made a request. We'll go get them now. Force's expression gradually became joyful. Hearing this, Lu Wu and the players were expressionless. Wasn't this like letting a pig return to the mountain to become a tiger? It was an extremely undesirable choice. I don't believe you. Then, the honorable invaders, why don't you come with us to get them? Force said while wiping his tears. I don't believe you. Thinking of the Surprise Clan that entered the Abyss world and turned into the Abyss Titan, Lu Wu and the players felt that they would be killed in seconds. When the Surprise Clan attacked from inside, their heads would be smashed, and they would not even have the ability to resist. Therefore, it was absolutely not advisable to enter together. After thinking for a while, Lu Wu said again, Force, are there abundant star cores inside? How much do you produce? A lot. Every Abyss beast inside has a star core, and those giant beasts of starry sky even have star source cores. It's just that the giant beasts of starry sky are generally very strong, and we don't want to provoke them. Force said timidly. Lu Wu nodded. How about we cooperate? Just say it. My clan is willing to satisfy all of your requests. Force said immediately, and with a strong desire to survive, he directly changed Lu Wu's words of cooperation into a request. After switching back to his cowardly form, he could throw away his origin force at will. It didn't exist. Staying alive was the truth, and cowardly was the only way to live longer. To tell you the truth, I need a lot of star cores, but we can't get them in the Abyss world, so I need your help. What are your conditions? Lu Wu's words instantly stunned the Surprise Clan, and they felt that it was very illogical. However, from Lu Wu's point of view, he wanted to obtain star cores in the long run, and not just harvest a batch and leave. Of course, at the moment, the conditions of the negotiation were in his hands, and he could fight for more favorable conditions for himself. Honorable Invader, if you want, we can get it for you. There's no need to exchange, Force said flatteringly. Lu Wu and the players did not believe a single word of what he said. Even if he agreed to it now, it would be painful for the Surprise Clan to attack him after he returned to the mountains. Without any conditions, it was completely unreasonable to make an unconditional offer. At this moment, the Surprise Clan was only bowing and scraping to survive, and their promises were not reliable at all. This time, Lu Wu really wanted to establish a friendship with the Surprise Clan. This was because he needed a lot of resources, and star cores were one of the resources that he needed very much. However, this kind of resource could only be obtained by the Surprise Clan. Tell me, what do you need? I can find a way to provide it to you. Lu Wu said again. We really don't need it, Honorable Invader, we will definitely fulfill your request. Force said shyly. Hypocritical to the extreme. If they had not seen the scene of the Surprise Clan attacking the Abyss world, Lu Wu and the players would definitely believe it. I say, stop pretending. I know that you can transform into the Abyss Titan in the Abyss world, and you are very strong. That's why we know you so well. Can't you be more honest? Everyone is so busy. Although their disguise was seen through, the Surprise Clan still looked aggrieved, and their attitude did not change at all. They wiped their tears, wiped their snot, and sobbed. They put on the weak, aggrieved, and pitiful posture that only the weak had. It was as if Lu Wu was bullying them by agreeing to provide them with star cores for free. Chapter 781. Lu Wu and the players were completely speechless at the Marvel Clan's attitude. You're still King pretending? Do you want to replay the video and see how ferocious you are in the Abyss? This was especially true for Origin Force, who was crying the loudest. He was a peak-level Great Emperor, one of the Abyss world's 7 kings, and he had even grasped the power of an extreme law. Did he not know what was going on? But judging from the current situation, it was clear that Origin and his clansmen didn't have such an idea. Honorable Invader, please let us go. Our clan is very miserable. At this moment, Yuan Chang raised his head and sobbed bitterly. Lu Wu was speechless. I said I won't kill you. Now I'm asking you what you want. Lu Wu was so angry that he raised his voice. This seemed to have scared the surprising tribe out of their wits, causing them to howl in unison. The players were so shocked that they could not help but take a few screenshots and included them in the emoji pack. Mass willing. JPG. It was Lu Wu's first time seeing such a strange race. He felt that he could not communicate with them properly. Do I look like a bad guy? I'll ask you one last time. What do you want, or we'll take action? Finally, Lu Wu could not help but roar. At this moment, all the surprised tribesmen were so frightened that they kept quiet. However, their bodies were still twitching, as if telling Lu Wu that they were still crying in their hearts, and that he couldn't stop them. What a lunatic! Lu Wu was so angry that he almost made a move. In the face of Lu Wu's threat, Force didn't express his willingness to provide it for free this time. We like to eat abyss beasts. Another one, Lu Wu said without hesitation. If the players can defeat the abyssal beasts at this stage, what's the point of having you? He simply didn't have any sense of propriety. Hearing Lu Wu's rejection, Yuan Li's expression showed that he had expected this. His mouth twitched as if he wanted to cry but did not dare to. Lu Wu face-bombed. I'm serious. Change your request. I really can't help you with this. But this time, the Origin Force just didn't say anything. He put on an expression as if he understood everything but didn't dare to say it. Damned officials, let's fight it out with them. I suspect that they're bullying you. At this time, a faint sigh sounded in the live chat channel. Lu Wu was speechless. Listening to the players' discussions in the live chat channel, Lu Wu was tempted to join the fight, even though he knew that he would not be able to defeat them. Go on, I want you to continue talking about your needs. Faced with Lu Wu's coercion, Yuan Li spoke again shyly. We also like to eat space beasts. Shut up. Wu, can't you give me a more normal request? I can handle the starry sky beasts and the abyss beasts. Why would I need you? Lu Wu was speechless. Our race only has one hobby, and that is to eat abyss beasts and star beasts. Our biggest dream is to live, so if you let us live, we'll help you catch abyss beasts and take their star cores. Upon hearing this, Lu Wu's heart skipped a beat. You want to live and not die? Wasn't this a need? Suddenly, Lu Wu thought of something. Why didn't he let the Marvel clan become the NPCs of the players? Lu Wu had almost forgotten that he could still recruit other forces during the time he was fighting in the extraterrestrial lands. Just like Tonghua, the Rock Ghost clan, the Wood Spirit clan, the Illusion Fish clan and so on. A smile finally appeared on Lu Wu's face when he thought of this because he already had a bargaining chip with the Marvel tribe. He would give them an immortal body and make them Star Cores transporters. Yuan Li, what if I say that I can fulfill your dreams and make you immortal, but you have to help me get the Star Cores from the Abyss world? What do you think? Upon hearing this, the Marvel tribe's eyes widened. Screenshot. Group dumbfounded. JPG. These words really scared the astonished tribesmen. After a brief silence, sadness appeared on the Marvel tribe's faces again. Look, the extraterrestrial forces are so good at bluffing honest people. They can't even catch delicious abyss beasts, but they say they can make us immortal. They're so good at bluffing. Why, you're not willing? Lu Wu frowned. We're willing. Yuan Li quickly said, and then the Marvel tribe around him followed suit. Even so, Lu Wu and the players could see one thing in their eyes. They didn't believe him. The reason why he said willing was because he was afraid of being beaten up, so he just said it perfunctorily. I'm King serious. Lu Wu clenched his teeth, and the Emperor's energy on the surface of his body surged violently. Yes, you're right. Yuan Li and the other Marvel tribe members quickly nodded and continued perfunctorily. Stupid official, I really suspect that they're bullying you. It's time to teach them a lesson. Another player instigated in the live chat channel. Lu Wu realized that these Marvel tribe members wouldn't believe him if he didn't show some of his strength, so he immediately pointed at Yuan Li. However, when he thought about the strength of Yuan Li and his strong body, it would be very difficult to kill him. Lu Wu pointed at the Marvel tribe member who was kneeling beside Yuan Li and wiping his tears. He opened the analysis menu and found that this person was the vice-clan leader of the Marvel tribe. He was also at the Emperor realm. Lu Wu moved his hand again and pointed at a Marvel tribe member who was at the ancient god realm. You come here. Sob, no. The Marvel tribe member's tears flowed freely, and he looked like he was about to be executed. However, before Lu Wu could do anything, the Marvel tribe member hurriedly sent the member to Lu Wu. The brotherly love touched Lu Wu and the players. Now relax and don't resist. I'm going to control your soul. Lu Wu's words scared the Marvel tribe member half to death. The rest of the Marvel tribe members were also terrified, and their faces were filled with despair. Don't worry, believe me. It'll be over soon. You'll also have an immortal body in the outside world. I believe you, the Marvel tribe member said with a trembling voice while wiping his tears. However, there was only one word in his eyes. He didn't believe it. Lu Wu didn't want to explain further. After all, the concept of immortality was also very metaphysical to a creature that grew up in the cultivation path. It was hard to believe. Just as Lu Wu was about to attack the Marvel tribe member, a trace of anger appeared on Yuan Li's face that was originally filled with sadness. However, this emotion was fleeting. After trying to gather his courage for 3 seconds, Yuan Li continued to fall into a state of fear. Sure enough, courage is not useful in the outside world. It can't be forced. It's better to continue hiding. Therefore, the anger on Yuan Li's face was fleeting. He wasn't suppressing it or covering it up, but he was really scared. After grabbing the Marvel tribe member, Lu Wu brought him into the artifact space, and both of them disappeared at the same time. At this moment, all the Marvel tribe members were shocked again. Yuan Li secretly sensed his surroundings, trying to find out where Lu Wu and the Marvel tribe member had gone. However, the artifact space was not something he could find. After some exploration, Yuan Li's face was also filled with shock. The players, on the other hand, wanted to stay calm. Now that they knew about the existence of the artifact space, and how Tong Gua and the others were transformed into NPCs, they naturally knew what Lu Wu was going to do with this Marvel tribe member. At this moment, in the artifact space, Lu Wu was ready to start the soul transformation. However, before he started, Lu Wu thought of Lil Bailey again. A trace of nostalgia appeared on his face, but this emotion was quickly suppressed by the bottom of his heart. Then, he summoned Lil Bailey's specially made operating table and put on the white coat that Lil Bailey wore every time she underwent soul transformation. As the surgery began, the soul power in the artifact space began to burn violently. Digitizing the body of an ancient god realm powerhouse consumed a lot of soul power. However, Lu Wu was not short-sighted when he thought about the rewards he could reap in the future. As the artifact's power was added to the Marvel tribe member's body, he suddenly began to struggle. Seeing this, Lu Wu immediately said, "Calm down, don't struggle." However, the Marvel tribe member did not seem to hear him. Tears flowed down his face and his body trembled. This made Lu Wu speechless. Just how afraid of death was he? Due to the Marvel tribe member's strong emotional fluctuations, the soul transformation could not be carried out normally. Lu Wu immediately knocked the Marvel tribe member out with a punch. At this moment, the soul transformation could be carried out normally. With the burning of soul power, Lu Wu followed Lil Bailey's instructions and his new understanding of the artifact. He completed the soul transformation of the ancient god realm powerhouse at a faster speed than Lil Bailey. He left the artifact's imprint in his soul. After some thought, Lu Wu did not instill the knowledge about the players and the artifact's space into his mind because it was unnecessary. Soon, the Marvel tribe member was awakened by Lu Wu and opened his eyes. Seeing Lu Wu, the Marvel tribe member's mouth widened. While Lu Wu was speechless, Lu Wu was too lazy to talk to him. He brought him out of the artifact space and appeared in the outside world. At this moment, the players were staring at the Marvel tribe member. The Marvel tribe member was kneeling on the ground obediently and did not resist. Seeing that Lu Wu had returned, the Marvel tribe member raised his head, but the fear in his eyes did not fade. "Watch closely," Lu Wu shouted angrily. He gathered the Emperor energy around his body on his right fist and punched the Marvel tribe member into a bloody mist. Then, the mist turned into a black fog and slowly dissipated. The scene was too bloody. All the Marvel tribe members were stunned. "Yuan Chong, check if your tribe member is dead," Lu Wu said. As the leader of the tribe, Yuan Chong's jaw dropped when he heard this. His tribe member was killed. He tried to muster the courage to resist, but he soon became dispirited again. He felt that Lu Wu was really despicable and deserved to die. Not only did Lu Wu kill his tribe member, but he also asked if his tribe member was dead. Was this something a human should say? This was like raping someone and asking them if they felt good. This was too much. However, Yuan Chang still chose to check. When he realized that he could not sense the existence of his tribe member, a sad expression appeared on his face. Seeing this, Lu Wu nodded in satisfaction. Then, with a thought, the soul power in the artifact space burned and healed the soul of the dead Marvel tribe member. Then, a body was formed inside the artifact, and he was summoned to the outside world. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the dead Marvel tribe member was resurrected just like that. The players were very calm. After all, they had been through a lot. However, the Marvel tribe members were completely dumbfounded. They had never seen such a magical thing in their lives. Being reborn after death in the outside world was the dream of the Marvel tribe members. What do you think? This is what I can give you. Do you want it? Lu Wu smiled as he looked at the shocked Marvel tribe members. Chapter 782. In fact, the Marvel tribesmen had never believed in Lu Wu's claim of immortality. This was because their ancestors had worked hard for this, spending a lot of energy and resources to find a way to achieve immortality. However, they all failed in the end. In order to achieve immortality, their ancestors chose to challenge the extreme peak in order to bring back the true power of immortality. At that time, the ancestor of the Marvel tribe thought that only the strongest ultimate rule in the extraterrestrial world could achieve this. However, what the patriarch obtained in the end was the law of devouring, not the ultimate nomological power that could give them immortality. Hence, from then on, although the Marvel tribe imagined themselves to be immortal, they never actively pursued it again. It was like watching fantasy movies, novels, and cartoons. They would imagine themselves to be able to cultivate, but there were very few people who would actually search for the illusory cultivation method. The Marvel tribe even believed that true immortality did not exist in the extraterrestrial world. Their body reconstruction in the abyss world was already the limit of what they could achieve. However, this time, the Marvel tribe was dumbfounded. Witnessing the resurrection of a dead tribesman with their own eyes gave them a huge shock. At this moment, all the Marvel tribe members looked at Lu Wu with a flattering expression. Is the dream of our Marvel tribe coming true? As the leader of the tribe, Yuan Chang was so excited that tears rolled down his cheeks. Honorable invader, is this all true? Lu Wu smiled and said, try it yourself. You'll know if it doesn't work. I'll let you do the killing this time. Yuan Li nodded excitedly and teleported to the side of the resurrected clansman. Yuan Li punched him heavily while he was still in a daze, turning him into a bloody mist. After the black mist dissipated, it was sucked into the artifact's space and reformed into the body of the dead Marvel tribe member. On the other hand, Lu Wu burned soul coins to repair his soul and infuse them into the body. When this dead clansman reappeared, Yuan Chang's eyes widened, and his heart was filled with extreme excitement. This time, he personally killed the tribesman, so he was sure that the tribesman was dead. The resurrection was real, not a fake illusion. Yuan Chang clenched his fists excitedly and punched the tribesman into a bloody mist. Lu Wu was speechless. This clansman's expression was lifeless when he was brought back to life. He seemed to be doubting life itself, and even his gaze toward origin power had changed. However, at this moment, the force excitedly took another step forward and raised his fist. But this time, before he could do anything, Lu Wu yelled angrily, "Enough, there's no end to this." Hearing Lu Wu's angry roar, the excitement on Yuan Chang's face disappeared instantly, replaced by a pitiful look. "Tell us, we'll listen to you. As long as you give us the ability to be immortal, we'll do anything." At first, his original plan was to lay low and pretend to be a grandchild. As long as there was a chance to go to the Abyss Realm, he would have the home field advantage and strike with a heavy blow. However, after seeing Lu Wu grant his people the ability of immortality, he had given up on the idea. In his eyes, Lu Wu was the savior, the supreme god who could lead his people out of the threat of death. Their ancestors had been pursuing immortality for generations, and today, they might really be able to realize it. However, Lu Wu shook his head. This kind of ability is not something that can be given out so easily. If you want it, you must first complete the task that I give you and reach the standard to grant the ability. Then, I'll grant you immortality. Although he had decided to turn the people of the Surprise Clan into NPCs, Lu Wu still had to face a problem at this stage, which was the lack of soul coins. The people of the Surprise Clan were generally very powerful. If they were all digitized at once, then the soul coins that he had accumulated over the years would definitely be used up, and it might not even be enough. Therefore, Lu Wu thought of an idea. That was to give the people of the Surprise Clan a task, such as using 100,000 star cores in exchange for immortality, which was to digitize their bodies. Therefore, Lu Wu's idea was to pay for the people of the Surprise Clan to become NPCs. The star cores could be converted into soul coins, which was definitely a profitable deal for Lu Wu. With the people of the Surprise Clan's desire for immortality, even if they were to be sold, they would still have to count the money for him. It was equivalent to Lu Wu spending a single cent to recruit the people of the Surprise Clan. Then what is the task that you want us to complete? Yuan Li put away his fear and asked with a curious look on his face. It's very simple. Next, I'll leave something in your souls. You'll understand after you read it. As he spoke, Lu Wu expanded the artifact territory and enveloped all the people of the Surprise Clan. This time, the people of the Surprise Clan did not resist. Instead, they obediently knelt on the ground and waited. As the artifact's power invaded their souls, it began to examine the details of each person's strength. At the same time, a piece of information appeared in the minds of all the people of the Surprise Clan. This time, what Lu Wu left in their minds was naturally a soul imprint. However, the people of the Surprise Clan had yet to become NPCs because their bodies had not been digitized. Lu Wu only injected part of the artifact knowledge and the task into their mind. Seeing the content that appeared in their minds, the people of the Surprise Clan were stunned. Auction house? Task? I need 100,000 star cores to complete the task. I don't have 100,000 star cores. Wow, I only need 50,000 star cores to complete the mission of immortality. I'm so happy. Sob sob sob. I need 500,000 star cores to complete the mission of immortality. I want it, but I don't have any star cores. Mommy, I only need 10,000 star cores. Since the people of the Surprise Clan had different strengths, the number of soul coins required for digitization was naturally different as well. The same process of digitization for a God Realm creature and an ancient God Realm creature would result in a huge difference in the number of soul coins required. Therefore, Lu Wu did not set a fixed number. Instead, he tested the strength of each person of the Surprise Clan before giving them different tasks of digitization. Therefore, the stronger one's strength was, the more star cores the task required. At this moment, Yuan Li, who was originally happy, was stunned when he saw the number of the task in his mind. Mission of Immortality. Your strength has been detected to be at the peak of the Great Emperor Realm. To complete this task, you need 0/58264281 star cores. Yuan Li? More than 50 million? Listening to the number that the people of the Surprise Clan shouted and comparing it with the number that he saw, Yuan Li's face was filled with question marks. His expression gradually became blank. This was because the number of star cores required for his task was more than 100 times more than that of the people of the Surprise Clan. This was simply an impossible task. Yuan Li felt that Lu Wu must have made a mistake. The task that he received might be a fake one. It was too unreal. At this moment, he raised his head pitifully and looked at Lu Wu with a resentful gaze. Honorable Invader, I think you've made a mistake with my task. The number doesn't match with my people. It can't be wrong. The stronger you are, the higher the requirements for the task. Don't doubt yourself, you're worth this price. Lu Wu grinned. After hearing Lu Wu's confirmation, Yuan Li collapsed to the ground. A thought emerged in his mind. He wanted to be useless. He thought that immortality was right in front of him. However, after seeing the number required for the task, Yuan Li felt that his hope was slim again. The most painful thing was to have hope shattered at the same time. Yuan Li, star cores are not the only thing that can complete the task. Soul coins can too, Lu Wu said with a smile. Soul coins? What are soul coins? Yuan Li asked with a dispirited expression. Do you see the information about the auction house in your mind? Try to connect with the mark in your soul, and you'll be able to open the auction house. You can use any resources to exchange for soul coins in the auction house. The ratio of soul coins to star cores is 134,522, 1. You can also use other resources to exchange for soul coins to complete your task. I can use resources other than star cores to exchange for soul coins? How about this? Yuan Li said as he took out a huge vertebra from his space. Lu Wu saw this and immediately opened the analysis function. Urka's vertebra, giant beast of galaxy. Item details. The vertebra of Urka, a ferocious beast from the abyss world. Its soul is sealed inside, and its roar can be heard frequently. Item usage. It can be used to forge weapons and armors. After grinding, it can be used to refine medicine. Lu Wu nodded when he saw the item's details. This item can be sold at the auction house. How many soul coins can it be exchanged for? Yuan Li asked with anticipation. You can set the price yourself. I'm not sure if other people will buy it. In short, you can put anything valuable in the auction house and exchange it for soul coins. Lu Wu explained again. Hearing this, the dispirited look on Yuan Li's face was swept away. He still had a lot of skeletons of ferocious beasts from the abyss world. His ancestors had accumulated a lot of treasures from the abyss world. If these things could be exchanged for soul coins and used to exchange for star cores, then the burden of the task would not be as heavy as he imagined. At this moment, Yuan Li connected with the mark in his soul and tried to open the auction house. The artifact responded and the interface of the auction house appeared in front of him. Looking at the vertebra in his hand, Yuan Li thought for a while and entered a row of numbers. He then followed the information provided by the auction house description in his mind and clicked confirm. Urka's vertebra was instantly absorbed into the artifact. At the same time, this item appeared on the auction house's list. The curious players opened the auction house one after another to see how much Yuan Li's price was. Urka's vertebra, price. 30,000 soul coins. After a brief silence, the players went crazy and bought it crazily, afraid that someone else would beat them to it. How could the players not know what kind of creature the giant galactic beast was after coming into contact with it? Therefore, selling it for 30,000 was like picking it up for free. It was a profitable business. The item was placed on the auction house for less than 5 seconds before it was bought by a lucky player with extremely fast hand. At this moment, the sold successfully notification sounded in Yuan Li's mind. Then, he saw that the balance of the soul coins in his mind had increased by 30,000. However, the soul coins did not enter Yuan Li's body. Instead, they remained in the artifact's space. What appeared in his mind was just a string of numbers. After all, Yuan Li's body and soul had yet to be digitized at this stage. He could not have soul coins or the ability to digitalize. Therefore, there was no need for him to keep the soul coins with him. He only needed to know how many soul coins he had. Seeing the clan leader's operation of Yuan Li, the people of Astonishment took out different abyss resources from their space and put them on the auction house. Seeing this scene, the players went crazy. Because the people of Astonishment did not know the prices of the items. They were bidding at random. Some rare items were extremely precious and could be exchanged for more than 1,000,000 soul coins. However, at this moment it was like picking them up for free. They could be bought for less than a tenth of the price. At this moment, Lu Wu and the players were very happy. Lu Wu was happy because the people of astonishment were counting the money for him after being sold by him. The players were happy because the people of astonishment were like the children of fortune, allowing them to earn a lot of resources.